Imagine this. It's 1996, a time when the world was still figuring out what the internet really meant. Flip phones were cutting edge, and video games were on the cusp of exploding into global phenomena. In a small game development studio in Japan called Game Freak, a visionary creator named Satoshi Tajiri is tinkering with an idea born from his childhood passion for collecting insects. He saw how kids in rural Japan would hunt for bugs in the forests, trading and battling them in friendly rivalries. What if, Tajiri wondered, he could capture that magic in a digital world? What if he could create a game where you could catch, train, and battle hundreds of unique creatures, each with their own personalities, powers, and evolutions? That spark of inspiration would ignite one of the most enduring franchises in entertainment history, Pokémon. Fast forward nearly 3 decades, and Pokémon isn't just a game, it's a cultural juggernaut. From the pocket-sized Game Boy cartridges that started it all to sprawling, open-world adventures on the Nintendo Switch, from the thunderous roar of Pikachu in the anime, to the billions of cards shuffled in living rooms worldwide, Pokémon has woven itself into the fabric of generations. It's sold over 480 million video games, making it the highest-grossing media franchise of all time, surpassing even giants like Mario and Star Wars. But why? Why has this simple concept of gotta catch 'em all captivated billions? Today, in this deep dive, the entire history of Pokémon from 1996 to today, we're going to unpack it all. We'll trace the origins, the evolutions, the controversies, the innovations, and the unbreakable bond it creates between players, creators, and those adorable, sometimes terrifying monsters we call Pokémon. Before we go any further, I know many of you fall asleep to my videos or let them play while you relax. If that's you, save our Sleepy Pokémon playlist and come back anytime. I'll keep the narration soft and the screen dim. All I ask in return is a small favour. Hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks for your support. Now back to the video. Let's start at the very beginning, because understanding where Pokémon came from is key to appreciating where it's headed. Satoshi Tajiri wasn't always a game designer. Growing up in the 1970s and 80s in Machida, a suburb of Tokyo, he was an avid bug collector. Urbanization was swallowing up the natural spaces where he once roamed, so he dreamed of a way to preserve that sense of discovery. Teaming up with his childhood friend, Ken Sugimori, who would become the iconic artist behind the Pokémon designs, and programmer Junichi Masuda, Tajiri founded Game Freak in 1989. Their early games were quirky RPGs, but it was Pokémon that would define them. The year was 1996, and Nintendo's handheld Game Boy was the perfect canvas. Tajiri envisioned a role-playing game where players journeyed across regions, capturing creatures using Poké Balls, a genius mechanic inspired by bug nets and marbles. The first games released in Japan as Pokémon Red and Green on February 27, 1996, introduced us to the Kanto region, a vibrant world modelled after the Kanto Plain in Japan. You play as Red, a young trainer setting out from Pallet Town, with your starter Pokémon, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle. The goal? Defeat the 8 gym leaders, conquer the Elite Four, and become the champion, all while building your Pokédex, that trusty encyclopedia chronicling every species. But Pokémon wasn't just about battling, it was about connection. The trading system required linking 2 Game Boys, turning solitary play into a social adventure. Kids everywhere were linking up at school, trading their prized catches, fostering friendships and rivalries that mirrored real life. Red and Green were hits in Japan, but Nintendo knew they had global potential. They refined the formula, adding Blue as an enhanced version with updated graphics and the inclusion of all starter Pokémon. Enter Pikachu. That yellow electric mouse with the rosy cheeks wasn't even in the original games as a starter. He was a late addition, designed to be cute and marketable. Little did anyone know he'd become the face of the franchise. In 1997, the Pokémon trading card game launched in Japan, a parallel universe where strategy met collecting. Players built decks around their favourite Pokémon, using energy cards and trainers to outmaneuver opponents. It was simple yet deep, appealing to kids and adults alike. By 1998, it exploded internationally, with Wizards of the Coast handling distribution outside Japan. Suddenly, Pokémon cards were everywhere, tucked in lunchboxes, traded on playgrounds, and even sparking moral panics about gambling. But the real global takeover began with the anime. On April 1st, 1997, April Fool's Day, fittingly, the Pokémon anime premiered in Japan. Ash Ketchum, a wide-eyed 10-year-old from Pallet Town, sets off with his reluctant partner, Pikachu, who starts off zapping everything in sight. Voiced by the legendary Rika Matsumoto, Ash's journey mirrored the game's, but with heart-pounding adventures, Team Rocket's bumbling villainy, and themes of friendship and perseverance. The show was a sensation, airing 1,000+ episodes across multiple series. When it hit the US in 1998 on Kids WB, renamed Pocket Monsters to Pokémon for easier pronunciation, it became a phenomenon. Pikachu plushies flew off shelves, merchandise flooded stores, and suddenly everyone knew Pika P. This multimedia synergy was no accident. The Pokémon Company, formed in 1998 as a joint venture between Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures Inc., orchestrated it all. Merchandise alone generated billions. Pokémon centers popped up in Japan, stuffed with everything from keychains to clothing. By 1999, the franchise was a cultural wave, influencing fashion, music, and even sparking the Pokémania craze in the West. Movies, like Pokémon, the first movie, released in 1998 in Japan and 1999 worldwide, drew massive crowds, with Mewtwo's philosophical dilemmas adding depth beyond kid fare. As we hit the new millennium, Pokémon was ready to evolve, literally. Generation 2 arrived with Pokémon Gold and Silver in 1999 in Japan, expanding to the Johto region, inspired by the Kansai area. New mechanics like breeding Pokémon, day-night cycles, and the ability to revisit Kanto post-game doubled the content. Crystal followed in 2000, introducing animations and the female protagonist Chris. The world grew bigger, the roster swelled to 251 Pokémon, and features like the Pokegear, a virtual phone, map, and radio, added immersion. The 2000s marked Pokémon's maturation. Wireless adapters let players trade without cables, and the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection in later games enabled global battles. Generation 3 with Ruby and Sapphire in 2002 brought the Hoenn region, double battles, and the beloved contests. Fire Red and Leaf Green remade the originals in 2004, bridging old and new fans, while Emerald added the Battle Frontier for competitive depth. By Diamond and Pearl in 2006, Generation 4 introduced the Sinnoh region, physical, special move splits for balanced battling, and online trading via Wi-Fi, turning Pokémon into a worldwide community. Platinum in 2008 refined it further, and Heart Gold or Soul Silver in 2009 brought Johto back with modern touches like the Pokewalker, a pedometer that let your Pokémon explore in real life. Competitive play took shape with the Pokémon Video Game Championships, where top trainers vied for glory. The era solidified Pokémon as more than games. The anime evolved with new protagonists like Dawn, the TCG boomed with sets like EX Series, and spin-offs like Pokémon Snap and Colosseum added variety. Entering the 2010s, Pokémon pushed boundaries. Generation V's Black and White in 2010 to 2011 introduced Unova, a fresh start with all new Pokémon. No Kanto nostalgia here. It tackled bold themes like truth versus ideals through Rival N and Team Plasma. Black 2 and White 2 in 2012 were groundbreaking direct sequels, set 2 years later with post-game epics. Then Generation 6 X and Y in 2013 leaped to full 3D on the 3DS, introducing Mega Evolutions, temporary power-ups that let Pokémon transform mid-battle, and the Fairy type to counter dragons. Kalos, inspired by France, Dazzled with fashion-forward Lumiose City, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire remade Hoenn in 2014, adding soaring on legendary Pokémon. The decade saw Pokémon Go's 2016 launch, an AR mobile hit that got millions walking parks, catching virtual critters via GPS. It revitalized the brand, earning billions and proving Pokémon's adaptability. Sun and Moon in 2016 brought Alola, a tropical paradise with regional forms, and Z-moves for flashy finishes. No gyms, instead, Trials and the Island Challenge emphasized story. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon in 2017 expanded with interdimensional twists. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee in 2018 blended mainline RPG with Pokémon Go mechanics, remaking Kanto for Switch with simplified catching via motion controls. The Switch era ushered in Generation 8 with Sword and Shield in 2019. Gala's Britain-inspired landscapes and Dynamaxing, giant Pokémon battles in stadiums, were fresh, but the Dexit controversy erupted when Game Freak announced a reduced Pokédex, cutting some species from the core game. Fans rallied with petitions, but DLC like Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra in 2020 added them back, marking Pokémon's first paid expansions for mainlines. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remade Sinnoh in 2021 with chibi art, while Legends Arceus in 2022 revolutionized gameplay, a semi-open world in ancient Hisui where you catch on the fly and craft items, laying groundwork for exploration-focused adventures. Generation 9's Scarlet and Violet in 2022 fully embraced open-world Paldea, Spain-inspired, with terrestrialization letting Pokémon change types via crystals. No linear path, explore freely, battle in real-time-ish encounters. DLC like Teal Mask and Indigo Disc in 2023 added Kitakami and Blueberry Academy, with the 2024 epilogue introducing Petulant. Debates rage on performance glitches, but the freedom captivates. Looking ahead, 2025 brings Pokémon Legends, ZA, set in a redeveloping Lumiose City from XY. Real-time battles replace turns, Mega Evolutions return, and DLC will expand the story. A bold shift. In 2026, Pokémon Pokopia launches Switch 2 exclusive. Play as a human Ditto in a life sim sandbox, building farms, crafting with moves, co-op worlds across biomes, introducing peculiar forms like Pikachu, and Pokémon Champions blends turn-based strategy with battles on Switch and mobile, tying into home. Throughout, pillars like the TCG with its vast ecosystem, the anime's enduring tales, Pokémon Go's mobile dominance, and spin-offs like Mystery Dungeon keep the flame alive. Merch, events, crossovers, Pokémon is everywhere. Why does it endure? Because at its heart, Pokémon is about growth, personal, communal, creative. It teaches resilience through losses, joy in discoveries, and the thrill of sharing. Whether you're a veteran reliving Kanto or a newbie in Paldea, it invites you to dream big. Join me as we journey through every generation, every twist, every electric spark. This is the story of Pokémon, your story too. Let's catch 'em all. The spark of creation. In the quiet suburbs of rural Japan during the 1970s, a young boy named Satoshi Tajiri spent his days knee-deep in the underbrush, his pockets bulging with insects he'd captured on endless adventures. What if I told you that those simple hunts for beetles and butterflies would one day birth an empire worth billions? Satoshi wasn't just playing, he was discovering a world of wonder that would shape his entire life. You see, growing up in Machida, near Tokyo, he was obsessed with bugs. He'd trade them with friends at school, sketch their intricate details in notebooks, and even dream up ways to keep them safe in jars he crafted himself. But as he got older, something heartbreaking happened. Urbanization swallowed up the wild spaces he loved. Forests turned to concrete, streams to sewers, and those vibrant creatures became harder to find. Satoshi felt a pang of loss, a deep sense that the magic of exploration was slipping away. Yet that loss fueled a fire in him, he started thinking bigger, wondering how he could preserve that thrill for others, especially kids like him who might never experience it firsthand. Fast forward to the 1980s, and Satoshi's passion found a new outlet in the pixelated glow of early video games. He'd devour titles on his Famicom, but none quite captured that rush of discovery he remembered from his bug hunting days. By his late teens, he was writing about games for a fanzine called Game Freak, named after his dream of creating something truly freakish and fun. That hobby turned serious when he teamed up with a friend, Ken Sugimori, to form a tiny development studio under the same name. Game Freak was born in 1989, operating out of Satoshi's parents' garage with borrowed computers and a shoestring budget. Their first project, a simple RPG called Quinty, flopped hard. It barely sold, leaving them scraping by. But Satoshi didn't quit. He poured his soul into ideas that blended his love for collecting with the interactive magic of games. In your mind, a world where you could catch elusive creatures, not with nets, but with digital tools, trading them, battling them, building a collection that felt alive. That vision simmered in his head for years, evolving into something revolutionary. By the mid-1990s, Game Freak was on the brink. They'd released a few more titles like the puzzle game Mario and Wario, but success was elusive. Debts piled up, and the team, now a handful of dedicated misfits, faced eviction from their cramped office. Satoshi later admitted they were weeks away from bankruptcy, the kind that ends dreams before they start. Rent was unpaid, equipment was outdated, and investors laughed off their pitches for a game about pocket-sized monsters. But here's where the story gets gripping. In 1995, Nintendo approached them with an opportunity. The Game Boy, that clunky handheld wonder, needed more games to boost its library. Satoshi saw his chance. He pitched Pocket Monsters, a game where players roam a vast region, capturing wild beasts called Pokémon, training them to fight in strategic battles. It was risky, almost insane. Developing for the Game Boy meant wrestling with its limited hardware, black and white graphics, no save battery in early models, and a tiny screen that could barely show the action. Most studios played it safe with platformers or shooters, but Satoshi bet everything on this quirky concept inspired by his childhood hunts. The development of Pocket Monsters, later known as Pokémon Red and Green in Japan, was a nail-biter from day one. Game Freak's team worked grueling hours, often sleeping under their desks. Satoshi handled the core design, mapping out regions based on real Japanese locales like the Kanto area, where players start as a young trainer leaving their hometown. He drew from his bug-collecting days to create mechanics that felt authentic, throwing a Pokeball to catch a creature after weakening it in battle, then storing it in a PC box for later. But the real genius was in the connections. You could link two Game Boys with a cable to trade Pokémon, mirroring how Satoshi traded bugs with friends. Battles were turn-based, not real-time chaos, allowing strategy to shine, choosing moves like tackle or growl, typing in commands that made every encounter a puzzle. They aimed for 151 unique Pokémon, each with distinct looks, types and evolutions. Pikachu was there from the start, but as a rare electric mouse, not yet the star. Designing them all? Overwhelming. Ken Sugimori sketched hundreds of concepts, from the fiery Charmander to the psychic Mewtwo, pulling from mythology, animals, and pure imagination. Bugs were everywhere. Caterpie evolving into Butterfree, Venonat with its fuzzy antenna. It was Satoshi's tribute to those lost forests, digitized and immortalized. Money woes nearly derailed it all. At one point, they couldn't afford to finish the sprites, so team members hand drew them on graph paper, scanning what little tech they had. Bugs in the code, pun intended, plagued testing. Pokémon would glitch out, refusing to obey, or vanishing into digital voids. Satoshi obsessed over balance, ensuring no creature felt useless. Every type, like fire-beating grass, had counters that encouraged smart play. Nintendo's support was crucial. Executive Tsunekazu Ishihara believed in the vision, fronting loans to keep the lights on. By 1996, with Japan buzzing about the upcoming launch, the stakes couldn't be higher. Game Freak had poured their last yen into this. Failure meant the end. But on February 27, 1996, Pocket Monsters, Red and Green, hit shelves for the Game Boy in Japan. At 3,800 yen a pop, about $30 today, it introduced that world of 151 Pokémon, sprawling routes from Pallet Town to the Indigo Plateau, gym leaders to conquer, and the Elite Four as the ultimate test. Turn-based battles demanded you think ahead. Will you switch out your Squirtle for Bulbasaur? Risk a catch or grind for levels? It was addictive, a loop of explore, capture, battle that hooked you without you realizing. Yet the launch was anything but explosive. Initial sales trickled in, maybe 200,000 copies in the first few months. Critics were polite but puzzled. Why a game about collecting monsters when kids wanted faster action? Stores stocked it quietly, overshadowed by hits like Tetris or Super Mario Land. Game Freak held their breath, wondering if bankruptcy loomed again. Satoshi walked into shops, heart pounding, to see unsold cartridges gathering dust, but whispers started spreading. Kids traded tips in schoolyards. Did you catch that Pidgey yet? Word of mouth built slowly, especially the trading feature. Without it, your Pokédex stayed incomplete. You needed friends to fill the gaps. That social glue turned solitary play into a shared obsession. By summer, sales picked up, climbing past 1 million. It wasn't overnight fame, but a spark igniting. You can almost feel the tension, right? A small team defying odds, turning personal nostalgia into code that captured lightning in a bottle. Well, a Pokeball. What made this creation so special wasn't just the mechanics, it was the heart behind it. Satoshi Tajiri once said in interviews that he wanted to give kids the joy he felt flipping rocks for rare beetles, that thrill of the unknown. In a digital world where real nature was fading, Pokémon became a sanctuary. Each creature had a story. Bulbasaur, the seed Pokémon, evolving through stages like a real-life metamorphosis. The game world felt alive, with random encounters on grass patches, hidden items in caves, and rivals who taunted your progress. Gym badges weren't just trophies, they symbolized growth, pushing you from novice to champion. And those 151, they weren't random. Satoshi and his team debated for months. How many evolutions, what weaknesses, fire, water, grass formed the core triangle, but adding poison, psychic, and more created depth that battles could drag on for hours. Imagine grinding against wild Rattata, only to evolve your Eevee into a Flareon at just the right moment. It was risky, too many types might confuse players, but it paid off, laying the foundation for strategies that fans still dissect today. Diving deeper into the development risks, consider the tech hurdles. The Game Boy's infrared link-up was finicky. Trades often failed mid-transfer, frustrating early testers. Satoshi iterated endlessly, simplifying menus so even kids could navigate. Near bankruptcy meant no room for error. They coded overnight to meet deadlines, fueled by instant ramen and sheer will. Ishihara's gamble with the Nintendo saved them, but it was Satoshi's unyielding vision that held it together. He envisioned Pokémon as partners, not tools, naming them, leveling them up, feeling their bond grow. That emotional layer, subtle but powerful. When your starter Pokémon takes a hit for you, or a traded buddy arrives with a nickname from afar, it tugs at something real. Launch day brought quiet hope, but obscurity lingered. Articles in Famitsu magazine praised the innovation, yet mainstream buzz was absent. Sales charts buried under bigger titles. Game Freak's team celebrated small victories. A fan letter here, a playground sighting there. It was the underdog story you root for, the spark that could flicker out or blaze into legend. As months passed, that obscurity began to crack. Players discovered secrets like the Mew glitch, rumours of a hidden 150th Pokémon drove kids wild, trading rumors like contraband. The game's portability was key. On buses, in parks, Game Boys linked up, creating invisible networks of trainers. Satoshi watched from afar, vindicated but exhausted. His bug-collecting routes shone through in details like the Safari Zone, a nod to real insect preserves where you lure creatures with bait. Every route echoed his childhood paths. Route 1's gentle start, like his first hunts, Victory Road's treacherous caves, testing resolve. The Elite Four battles, epic showdowns where type matchups decided fate, turning casual players into tacticians. Yet initial sales hovered low, and doubt crept in. Would this be Game Freak's swan song? The risk of 1996's development, betting on a niche idea in a market craving speed, hung heavy. But persistence paid. By year's end, momentum built, setting the stage for something unstoppable. You might wonder, how does a game born from near ruin and childhood whims survive those early shadows? It did so by tapping into universal joy. The hunt, the collection, the camaraderie. Satoshi's inspiration wasn't flashy. It was pure, rooted in loss and longing. Those 151 Pokémon weren't just pixels, they were vessels for adventure, each one a bug from his past reborn. Turn-based battles forced patience, rewarding cleverness over reflexes, a breath of fresh air in an arcade-dominated era. Obscurity tested them, but it also built a cult following, traders swapping at conventions, kids sketching their teams in class. Game Freak emerged leaner, hungrier, their risky bet forging bonds that would explode globally. And just when red and green started turning heads in Japan, a certain yellow mouse was about to steal the spotlight in ways no one saw coming. Up next, in Chapter 2, Pikachu's Rise to Fame, you'll discover how this unassuming Pokémon leaped from side character to worldwide icon, sparking a frenzy that changed everything. You won't want to miss how it all ignited. Pikachu's Rise to Fame. In 1996, the Pokémon trading card game burst onto the scene in Japan, a simple deck of cards featuring those pocket monsters that Satoshi Tajiri had dreamed up. And it didn't just sell, it exploded. Wizards of the Coast, the company behind Magic, The Gathering, saw potential and licensed it for the West. But no one could have predicted how fast it would catch fire. Within months, kids were swapping cards like currency on the playground, turning recess into high-stakes negotiations. You'd hear shouts of, "Trade you my Charizard for your Blastoise," echoing across schoolyards, and suddenly these colourful cards weren't just collectibles, they were the hottest commodity. The game outsold every expectation, raking in millions, while teaching a generation about strategy, rarity, and that thrill of the pull. But what made it stick? It captured the essence of Pokémon, collecting, battling, evolving, all in a portable format that fit right in your pocket. Parents were baffled, teachers were pulling out stacks of confiscated cards from desks, and factories were scrambling to keep up with demand. You remember that rush, don't you? The way a holographic Venusaur could make your day, or how losing a keycard in a trade felt like the end of the world. That was Pokémon TCG in its infancy, laying the groundwork for an empire built on cardboard dreams. As the cards flew off shelves, the real magic was brewing in another medium, one that would catapult a certain yellow mouse into stardom. Fast forward to 1997, and the Pokémon anime premieres on Japanese television. But here's the twist. Instead of starting with the protagonist's faithful Bulbasaur or Squirtle from the games, the show centers on a spiky-haired kid named Ash Ketchum and his reluctant partner, Pikachu. Why Pikachu? Satoshi Tajiri and the team at Game Freak knew they needed a mascot that screamed personality. Cute, feisty, electric, and utterly unforgettable. From the very first episode, where Pikachu zaps Ash in a fit of defiance, you could feel the spark. This wasn't just a sidekick, it was a star. The anime aired weekly, pulling in kids who had battled with the Game Boy cartridges and now wanted to see their favourites come alive. Ash's journey to become a Pokémon master mirrored every viewer's own dreams. But Pikachu stole the show with those wide eyes, cheek pouches, and that signature Pika-Poi cry. Overnight, Pikachu transformed from a game character into a global icon. Merchandise featuring that little guy flooded stores, and suddenly everyone wanted a piece of the Thunderbolt. You can picture it, right? Kids glued to the TV, mimicking Pikachu's moves, while the world started buzzing about this phenomenon from Japan. The anime didn't just adapt the games, it humanized them, turning battles into heartfelt adventures and making Pokémon feel like family. But let's dive deeper into how that anime ignited the flame. The premiere episode, titled Pokémon I Choose You, dropped on April 1st, 1997, and it was no April Fool's joke. Directed by Kunihiko Yuyama, the series blended humour, action, and those epic gym battles with a warmth that hooked you from minute one. Ash, voiced by Rika Matsumoto in Japanese, was every aspiring trainer, eager, clumsy, determined. And Pikachu, voiced by Ikue Otani, who gave it this perfect mix of sass and loyalty, evolving from a standoffish elect Pokémon to Ash's unbreakable bond. The show aired right as the games were gaining traction, and it amplified everything. In Japan, ratings soared past 10%, a huge number for kids programming back then. Internationally, when it hit the US in 1998 on Kids WB, it was redubbed with Veronica Taylor as Ash and Rachel Lillis voicing Pikachu, but the charm translated seamlessly. Pikachu's face became synonymous with Pokémon, plastered on everything from lunchboxes to billboards. Why did it work so well? Because it tapped into that universal kid fantasy. Adventure, friendship, and the power of never giving up. You felt Ash's frustration when Pikachu refused to obey at first, then the joy when they synced up for a Thunderbolt. It wasn't scripted perfection. There were those infamous filler episodes with Team Rocket's bumbling schemes, but even those added to the fun, making villains like Jesse and James quotable icons. By the end of that first season, Pokémon had crossed oceans, and Pikachu was no longer just a mascot. He was a cultural force, sparking debates on playgrounds about whether he'd ever evolve into Raichu. Spoiler, fans begged for it to stay the same, and the world listened. Now you might wonder, how did this translate beyond screens and cards? By 1998, the merchandise explosion hit Japan like a hyperbeam, turning everyday life into a Pokémon wonderland. Plush toys of Pikachu weren't just stuffed animals, they were must-haves that sold out in hours. Imagine walking into a Tokyo department store and seeing aisles dedicated to Pokémon. Soft, huggable versions of Jigglypuff Snorlax, and of course, stacks of Pikachu in every size. From keychain miniatures to life-sized behemoths that could fill a bedroom. School supplies got the treatment too. Pencils etched with Pokeballs, notebooks featuring Pikachu's grin, erasers shaped like Pokedexes. Kids showed up to class with backpacks bulging with official gear, and suddenly doing homework felt like training your team. This wasn't accidental. The Pokémon Company, formed in 1998 by Nintendo, Creatures, and Game Freak, orchestrated it masterfully. They licensed everything, from clothing lines where you could rock a Pikachu hoodie to snacks like Pocky Sticks wrapped in foil mimicking evolution stones. Cultural mania swept the nation. Pokémon centers opened as pop-up shops. Events drew thousands for card tournaments, and even public transit ads featured Mewtwo pondering existence. In Japan, where collectibles have always been king, this hit at the perfect time, blending kawaii cuteness with strategic depth. But it sparked something bigger, a frenzy that led to Pokemania, with parents queuing overnight for limited edition items. Remember the Tamagotchi craze? Pokémon took it to another level, embedding itself in daily routines. You could eat breakfast with Pikachu cereal, play with action figures at lunch, and dream of catching them all by night. It fueled playground trades not just for cards, but for stickers, figurines, anything that glowed with that electric energy. Let's talk about the ripple effects, because this rise wasn't without its chaos. The TCG's success meant expansions dropped quarterly, introducing sets like Jungle and Fossil that added rare holos and new strategies. Keeping trades alive and evolving, kids formed clubs, debated meta decks, and even faced off in official leagues starting that year. The anime, meanwhile, rolled out movies to theatres. The first Mewtwo Strikes Back in 1998, packed houses with its tale of cloned Pokémon and ethical dilemmas, all anchored by Pikachu's heroic dashes. Box office records tumbled. It was the highest-grossing anime film ever at the time. Pikachu's appeal crossed demographics too. Adults got into the nostalgia, collecting pristine cards as investments that would later skyrocket in value. By 1998, the merch wave had generated billions in revenue, proving Pokémon wasn't a fad. It was a blueprint for transmedia empires. In Japan, festivals celebrated with Pikachu parades, and schools incorporated Pokémon-themed learning tools to harness the hype. But here's what surprises most. This mania influenced global trends. When the anime aired abroad, Pikachu fever spread. Theme parks added attractions. Fast food chains ran promotions with Pokeball toys. You felt part of something massive, like discovering a secret club where everyone spoke the language of types and evolutions. Yet, it all stemmed from that 1996 spark, the TCG's unexpected boom, and the 1997 anime that made Pikachu the face of it all. Expanding on the cultural impact, consider how Pikachu's rise redefined mascots. Before him, you had Mickey Mouse or Snoopy, beloved but static. Pikachu was dynamic, zapping into hearts with personality that evolved episode by episode. The merch explosion by 1998 wasn't just sales, it was a lifestyle. In Japan, Pokémon invaded pop culture. Manga spin-offs flew off shelves, video arcades featured Pokémon minigames, and even fashion weeks nodded to the trend with Poké-inspired prints. School supplies became a battleground for expression. Who'd have the coolest Pikachu pencil case? This mania sparked creativity too. Fan art, homemade cards, cosplay at early conventions. But it wasn't all smooth. Scalpers jacked up prices on rare merch, leading to the first waves of Pokémon shortages that echoed through news cycles. Parents formed alliances to snag deals, while kids learned the value of patience and strategy in the wild world of collecting. The TCG fueled this directly. Playground trades evolved into after-school economies, with some kids amassing collections worth hundreds. And the anime, it provided the narrative glue, with Ash's Pikachu as the emotional core. Episodes like the one where Pikachu gets sick tugged at heartstrings, making you root for that little guy's recovery more than any battle win. By 1998, Pikachu wasn't just famous, he was a symbol of joy in a pre-digital boom era, bridging games, cards, shows and toys into one unbreakable chain. As we wrap up this chapter on Pikachu's meteoric ascent, it's clear how those early years laid the foundation for everything to come. From the TCG's playground revolutions to the anime's heartfelt hooks and the merch that turned Japan into a Pokémon paradise, Pikachu didn't just rise, he electrified the world. But hold on, because the story doesn't stop here. Up next in Chapter 3, Gold and Silver's Golden Age, we'll uncover how the second generation doubled down on that magic, introducing new regions, baby Pokémon, and twists that would redefine the franchise forever. You won't want to miss how it all gleamed brighter than ever. Gold and Silver's Golden Age. In 1999, Pokémon Gold and Silver hit the shelves in Japan, marking the explosive debut of Generation 2 and kicking off what fans still call the golden age of the series. You remember the thrill of catching your first Pokémon in the original games? Well, this was that magic amplified, taking you far beyond Kanto into a whole new world called Johto. Picture starting your journey in New Barktown, the sun rising over a sleepy port, and your mum waving goodbye as you step out with just a single Pokémon at your side. It felt personal, almost like Pokémon was growing up right alongside you. But let's dive deeper into what made this release such a game changer. Game Freak didn't just slap together a sequel, they expanded the universe in ways that hooked players for hours on end. Johto wasn't some distant island, it connected seamlessly to Kanto, letting you sail back to the original region after beating the Elite Four. That meant revisiting old favourites like Viridian City, but now with a fresh perspective, your team's stronger, your strategies sharper. You could challenge the Kanto gym leaders again, collect all 8 badges twice over, and even take on the legendary Red himself on Matt Silver. It was like coming home to a reunion where everyone had leveled up, and the Pokémon themselves, over 100 new ones joined the roster, from the adorable Chikorita munching on leaves to the fierce Tyranitar shaking the ground. Each felt thoughtfully designed, fitting into Johto's misty forests, bustling cities, and ancient ruins. One of the biggest innovations that had everyone talking was the introduction of breeding mechanics. Before Gold and Silver, Pokémon were these wild creatures you caught or evolved through items and levels. But now, you could take 2 compatible Pokémon to the daycare on Route 34, leave them to chat it up, and come back to an egg. Crack that open and you'd get a baby Pokémon with inherited moves and even egg moves from its parents, stuff you couldn't learn otherwise. It turned breeding into this addictive puzzle. Want a perfect IV spread? Grind for it, dreaming of a Togepi with metronome. Breed strategically. You felt like a real trainer, building legacies instead of just collecting. I remember friends staying up late, debating type compatibilities and hidden abilities, turning their Game Boys into virtual ranches. It added layers of depth, making every playthrough unique and replayable. Suddenly, Pokémon wasn't just about the journey, it was about creating your own dynasty. Sales in Japan were through the roof, over 1 million copies in the first week alone. Kids lined up at stores, trading tips on where to find that elusive Celebi or how to evolve Eevee into Espeon under the right sunlight. The hype was building because Pokémon had already become a cultural force after Generation 1, but Gold and Silver proved it could sustain that momentum. They refined the core loop. Time-based events meant your internal clock affected everything, from berry growth to evolutions, adding this subtle realism. Roamers like the legendary beasts Raikou, Entei, and Suicune dashed across the map, forcing you to chase them in real time. It was exhilarating, heart-pounding even, as you'd sprint through tall grass, hoping to corner one before it vanished. Johto's design shone here too, with interconnected routes that encouraged exploration. Honey trees dripping with wild encounters, the eerie bell tower calling to Ho-Oh. These weren't filler areas, they were worlds begging to be discovered. Fast forward to 2000, and Crystal arrived like a polished gem, enhancing everything that made Gold and Silver shine. This wasn't a mere expansion pack, it was a full version upgrade, the first of its kind in Pokémon history. Animations brought battles to life. Your Pokémon now dashed in with flair, attacks exploding in colour instead of static sprites. Imagine Pikachu's Thunderbolt crackling across the screen, or Feraligatr's Hydro Pump surging like a tidal wave. It made every fight feel dynamic, pulling you deeper into the immersion. But the real standout? For the first time, you could choose a female protagonist. Chris, with her confident stride and pink backpack, Let girls, and anyone who wanted a change, see themselves as the hero. No more defaulting to the boy from Red and Blue. This was inclusive, empowering. It deepened the emotional connection, making the story of leaving home and chasing dreams hit even harder. You weren't just playing a game, you were living it through a character that mirrored your own identity. Crystal also wove in new story elements, like the Suicune arc where you track the North Wind across Johto, unraveling mysteries tied to the environment. It added narrative weight, turning what could have been a simple sequel into an epic tale of balance and protection. Players raved about the mobile Pokégear, letting you call your mum for reminders or tune into radio stations to track roamers. And those bug-catching contests in the national park. They turned random encounters into competitive events, rewarding the sharpest eyes and quickest thumbs. Japan ate it up, with Crystal selling nearly as well as its predecessors, solidifying Generation 2 as the pinnacle of Pokemon's early innovation. Now, while all this was unfolding in Japan, the world outside was catching fire. International releases of Gold and Silver dropped in 2000, right as Pokemon exploded in the West. The timing was perfect. America was in the midst of its own Pokemon boom. The trading card game was everywhere, kids swapping Charizards at recess, and the anime had just premiered its first US season on Kids WB. Ash Ketchum's Adventures, with Pikachu zapping Team Rocket left and right, introduced millions to the franchise. But the games, they were the heart. Launching alongside the anime meant new fans could jump in seamlessly. You could watch Misty battle in the show, then head to the Game Boy to do the same with your own water types. The Western release felt like a cultural earthquake. Pokémon Stadium arrived on the N64, letting you 3D battle your Generation 2 teams with minigames and evolutions that the handheld couldn't handle. It bridged the gap, making the portable games feel epic on a bigger screen. Sales skyrocketed. Gold and Silver moved over 23 million units worldwide combined, outpacing even the originals in some markets. Europe got in on it too, with localized versions that preserved the charm while adapting names and humor. Suddenly, Pokémon centers popped up in malls, merchandise flooded shelves, and the phrase "gotta catch 'em all" became a global mantra. But it wasn't without challenges. Battery saves on Game Boys meant no more dead saves mid-adventure, a relief for travelling trainers. And the version exclusives, like having Ho-Oh in one and Lugia in the other, sparked a trading frenzy. Friends linked cables in parks, swapping legendaries until their thumbs cramped. What made this golden age truly special was how it captured lightning in a bottle. Generation 2 didn't reinvent the wheel. It oiled it, making every spin smoother, more exciting. Breeding let you experiment endlessly. Try hatching a Dratini with extreme speed, or breeding for a shiny Larvitar with that 1 in 8,000 odds. It fostered communities with fan sites buzzing about strategies before the internet was even ubiquitous. Johto's aesthetic, inspired by Japan's Kansai region, brought a softer, more mythical vibe. Goldenrod City's radio tower, Ekruteik's dance theatre with kimono girls. Each location told stories of tradition and progress. You could lose yourself in the Tin Tower, climbing to meet the rainbow bird, or surf to Whirl Islands for a shot at Kingdra. It was dense, rewarding exploration without hand-holding. Emotionally, Gold and Silver tugged at heartstrings in new ways. The rival Silver wasn't just a pest, he had his own arc, stealing Pokémon out of desperation, evolving from bully to a complex character seeking redemption. Beating him felt earned, not rote, and the post-game? Returning to Kanto as a champion, seeing how the world had changed, that nostalgia mixed with triumph was chef's kiss. Crystal amplified this with its animations, making victories pop. Choosing Chris meant role-playing as someone fierce yet kind, battling through the same trials, but with a fresh lens. It was immersive in a way that early games couldn't match, drawing you in for 50, 60, even 100 hours. The Western boom tied it all together. As the first US anime season aired, episodes like Pokémon Emergency hooked viewers on the bonds between trainers and Pokémon. Gold and Silver released amid this wave, fueling it further. Toys flew off. Shelves, Typhlosion plushies, Lugia figures, and the TCG tournaments packed convention centres. It was Pokémon's mainstream breakthrough, proving a Japanese RPG could conquer the world. Critics praised the depth. Nintendo Power called it the ultimate evolution. Fans formed lasting memories, like midnight launches where lines wrapped around blocks or sleepovers trading until dawn. Yet beneath the success, seeds of future growth were planted. Breeding mechanics laid groundwork for competitive play, where IVs and natures became king. Johto's dual region setup inspired later games to blend old and new. Crystal's female option pushed inclusivity, a quiet revolution. And the international sync? It globalized Pokémon, setting stages for stadium tours and world championships. You could feel the series maturing, from kids' game to phenomenon. As Generation 2 wrapped its golden era, whispers of what's next began to stir. But hold on, because the story heats up even more with Ruby and Sapphire's Tropical Revolution, where Pokémon dives into uncharted waters and shakes up everything you thought you knew. You won't want to miss how that changes the game forever. Ruby and Sapphire's Tropical Revolution. In 2002, Pokémon wasn't just evolving, it was diving headfirst into uncharted territory with the launch of Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire. These weren't mere sequels, they marked the dawn of Generation 3, a complete overhaul that ditched the familiar landscapes of Kanto and Johto for something wildly exotic, the tropical archipelago of Hoenn. Shift after conquering ancient ruins and misty mountains, you were suddenly surfing between sun-drenched islands, battling waves of new Pokémon that felt like they leaped straight out of a nature documentary. Hoenn wasn't a linear path anymore. It was an island-hopping odyssey, where you'd hop on your newly acquired surfboard to cross vast oceans, explore hidden coves teeming with coral reefs, and uncover secrets buried in volcanic craters. This design forced you to think like an explorer, charting your own course across a region, inspired by Japan's Kyushu Island, with its mix of beaches, rainforests, and rugged peaks. And let's talk about the Pokémon themselves, over 100 brand new ones, like the fiery Torchic that hatches into a blazing Combusken, or the water-loving Mudkip evolving into the swampy Swampert. You could feel the freshness in every encounter. These creatures weren't just palette swaps of old favourites. They brought a sense of discovery that made every route feel alive, every gym badge a hard-won trophy from a world that breathed with humidity and adventure. But what really set Ruby and Sapphire apart was the introduction of double battles, a mechanic that turned every fight into a high-stakes tag team showdown. Gone were the days of one-on-one duels where you could micromanage every move in isolation. Now you had to position two Pokémon side by side, coordinating attacks like a pro, wrestler calling out signals to a partner. Imagine facing off against a rival's duo, your Trico darting in for a quick strike, while your Poochyena holds the line with a snarling bite. It added layers of strategy that rewarded foresight and synergy. Did you pair a speedy flyer with a tanky defender? Or go all in on offense with two glass cannons? This wasn't just a gimmick, it revolutionized how you built your team, encouraging you to think about type matchups in pairs, and it laid the groundwork for the competitive scene that would explode later. Players raved about it, Suddenly battles felt dynamic, chaotic, even cinematic, like you were directing your own Pokémon epic. And the versions, Ruby leaned into the fiery primal side with Groudon as its legendary mascot, while Sapphire channeled the oceanic depths with Kyogre. The rivalry between them mirrored the red versus blue divide, pulling in collectors who traded endlessly to complete both dexes. Launching first in Japan that November, then hitting the West in March 2003, these games sold over 16 million copies, combined right out of the gate, proving that Pokémon could reinvent itself without losing its soul. You couldn't escape the hype. Stores were mobbed, and kids everywhere were swapping stories about their first double battle wipeout or that epic surf across Route 118. Yet Game Freak didn't stop at reinvention. They looked back too, bridging the gap between old guards and newcomers with the 2004 remakes of the original games, Fire Red and Leaf Green. These weren't lazy ports, they were Kanto reborn, with Generation 3's polish, updated graphics that made the pixelated charm of red and blue pop in vibrant colour, and mechanics that smoothed out the rough edges of the 98 classics. Remember squinting at those monochrome sprites and glitchy encounters? Now you had detailed overworld animations where Pikachu's tail flicked with personality and wild Pokémon popped out with flair. The region felt refreshed. Viridian Forest's trees swayed subtly, and the SS Anne rocked gently on pixelated waves, but it kept the nostalgic heart intact, letting veteran trainers relive their glory days while introducing Gen 3 features like the running shoes from the start and a wireless adapter for trading without cables. You could catch all 151 originals again, but now with Hoenn Pokémon sprinkled in for post-game hunts, creating this beautiful bridge. Fire Red skewed toward the fierce, with Charizard gracing the cover, while Leaf Green honoured Venusaur's verdant legacy. It was a masterstroke for accessibility. New players got a gentler entry to the series' roots, and old fans felt seen, like Game Freak was saying, "We remember where we came from." Sales soared to 12 million, and it sparked a remake renaissance that would echo through the franchise. Imagine firing up Fire Red after years away. That opening theme hits, Brock's Gym awaits, but now your battles flow with double options if you mod it in, or just the pure joy of EVs and held items elevating the challenge. It revitalized Kanto, making it feel timeless yet modern, and united communities in ways that forums buzzed about for months. Of course, no generation wraps without Definitive Edition, and that's where Pokémon Emerald stepped in during 2005, elevating the Hoenn saga to legendary status. Building directly on Ruby and Sapphire, Emerald wasn't just an enhanced version, it was a revolution in post-game content with the Battle Frontier, a sprawling complex of elite facilities designed to test the mettle of even the most seasoned trainers. Think of it as Pokémon's answer to an endgame gauntlet. 7 different domes, each with unique rules and rewards, from the raw power of the Battle Tower's streak challenges to the strategic mind games of the Battle Dome's tournament brackets. You arrived via a ferry from Battle Resort, stepping into a hub that screamed competition, where frontier brains, tough as nails specialists, guarded silver symbols that proved your dominance. It was addictive. 1 minute you're climbing the tower for 21 straight wins, the next you're outsmarting a dome coach in a best-of-3 spectacle. Emerald also balanced the legendary clash by pitting Groudon and Kyogre against Rayquaza, the sky-high dragon who intervenes in their primal war, adding narrative depth that made the Delta episode feel epic. Graphically, it refined everything. Faster load times, smoother animations, and that iconic E on the cover signalling completeness. Launching in Japan late 2004 and globally in May 2005, it moved another 7 million units, but its real impact was on the competitive community. The Battle Frontier introduced the concept of facilities that rewarded diverse playstyles, influencing tournaments for years. You could lose yourself for hours, grinding for that elusive gold symbol, feeling the rush of a comeback against a brain's ace Pokémon. It challenged you to master breeding, EVs and natures in ways the main story never demanded, turning casual players into strategists overnight. Diving deeper into what made Generation 3 such a tropical revolution, let's consider the cultural splash it made. Hoenn's island hopping wasn't just gameplay, it mirrored real-world exploration, drawing from Okinawa's beaches and Taiwan's coastlines for that authentic island vibe. You'd navigate Meteor Fall's cascading waterfalls or the scorched paths of Fiery Path, each area packed with environmental puzzles that tied into the story of Team Magma and Aqua, eco-terrorists clashing over land versus sea expansion. Their plots felt timely, echoing real debates on climate and development, and climaxes like the volcanic showdown on Mut Chimney had you sweating alongside your team. Double battles extended beyond wild encounters. Gym leaders like the acrobatic Winona or the inventive Watson forced you to adapt on the fly, teaching resilience through trial and error. And the music, those tropical flutes in Laveridge Town or the rhythmic beats of Slateport's market, they stuck in your head, evoking sunsets over the sea. For collectors, the dual versions meant hunting region, exclusive legendaries, fostering trades that built friendships across oceans. Ruby and Sapphire's engine upgrades, like the improved cry system where Pokémon voices echoed realistically, made the world immersive without needing 3D yet. The remakes, Fire Red and Leaf Green, went beyond visuals to fix Gen I's quirks. No more missing no glitches haunting your save files, and the CV Islands added fresh content with post-game quests involving ancient artifacts and new Pokémon like the Johto birds. You could link up with Ruby, Sapphire for cross-gen trades, a first that expanded the decks to 386 entries, making completionists dream big. Leaf Green's professor was a woman, Daisy Oak, nodding to inclusivity, while Fire Red amped up the intensity with tougher AR in key battles. These games bridged eras so effectively that they pulled back lapsed fans. My own circle of friends dusted off Game Boys for co-op runs through Cerulean Cave, sharing war stories about Mewtwo's psychic onslaught. It was a revival that honoured the past while whispering promises of more. Emerald sealed the deal by integrating it all. The full Hoenn decks, rematchable trainers scaling to your level, and that Battle Frontier as a perpetual challenge. Facilities like the Battle Pike's snake-like gauntlet or the Palace's luck-based rulings added variety, ensuring no two runs felt the same. Rayquaza's role expanded the lore, positioning it as Hoenn's guardian, and the post-game felt earned, not tacked on. Competitive players flocked to it, dissecting strategies on early forums, birthing metas around Pokémon like Salamence or Metagross that dominated for a generation. The version's success even influenced spin-offs, proving Game Freak's willingness to iterate. What tied Generation 3 together was its sense of boundless possibility. From the first wave crash in Dewford to claiming the Elite Four atop Evergrande City, you weren't just training Pokémon, you were forging a legend in a world that pulsed with life. The tropical revolution wasn't about flash, it was about depth, drawing you in with adventures that lingered long after the credits rolled. And as Hoenn's sun set on this era, a new dawn was breaking, one that would connect players like never before. Up next in Chapter 5, Diamond, Pearl and the Dawn of Connectivity, you'll discover how Pokémon went wireless, linking hearts and battles across the globe in ways that changed everything. How did this shift spark our online revolution? Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Diamond, Pearl, and the dawn of connectivity. In 2006, Pokémon took a bold leap into a new region called Sinnoh, where ancient myths and cutting-edge battle mechanics collided to redefine what it meant to be a trainer. Diamond and Pearl weren't just the next games in the series, they were a gateway to a world steeped in creation stories that felt epic, almost biblical, drawing you into legends of time, space, and the very fabric of reality. You start your journey in the chilly town of Twin Leaf, but before long, you're unraveling the lore of Dialga, the Lord of Time, and Palkia, Master of Space, two legendary Pokémon whose powers could warp existence itself. And hovering above it all is Arceus, the creator deity, a figure so immense that it ties every Pokémon myth together in a way that makes you question the boundaries between gods and monsters. This mythology wasn't tacked on, it pulsed through the story, making every gym, battle, and rival encounter feel like part of a grand cosmic tale. Have you ever caught yourself pondering how a video game could make you feel small in the universe? That's the magic Sinnoh pulled off, turning pixelated adventures into philosophical quests. But let's talk about what really shook up the battles. Because Diamond and Pearl didn't just tell stories, they revolutionized how you fought. For years, trainers had been frustrated by the old system, where moves were locked into physical or special categories based on their type, like all fire moves being special no matter what. It led to imbalances, where certain Pokémon dominated because their typing dictated everything. Enter the physical, special, split, a game changer introduced in these titles that assigned categories to moves individually, not types. Suddenly a fire type like Flamethrower stayed special, channeling energy through psychic force, while a punch like Fire Punch became physical, relying on raw muscle. You could now build teams with real strategy, pairing bulky defenders with hard-hitting physical attackers or speedy special sweepers without the old constraints holding you back. Imagine training your Infernape. Its close combat crushes with brute force, but its Flare Blitz adapts to the situation, letting you outmaneuver opponents who thought they had you figured out. This split made every matchup tense, every switch a calculated risk, and it balanced the meta in ways that competitive players still rave about today. It was like Pokémon grew up overnight, demanding you think deeper, plan smarter, and yes, lose more spectacularly when your strategy crumbled. As you explored Sinnoh's snowy peaks and misty lakes, the region itself became a character, with its folklore echoing in every cave and ruin. The story kicks off with your rival, Barry, dragging you into the world of Pokémon training after a fateful encounter with your starter, maybe Turtwig for that earthy resilience, or Chimchar for fiery potential. But the real hook is the villainous Team Galactic, led by the enigmatic Cyrus, who's not your typical power-hungry baddie. No, he's a nihilist obsessed with perfection, seeking to remake the universe using the Lake Guardians, Uxie for knowledge, Mesprit for emotion, and Azelf for willpower. Their capture scenes are chilling, forcing you to chase myths across dimensions, and it all builds to a climax at the Spear Pillar, where time and space tear open. You feel the weight of it, don't you? That moment when Dialga or Palkia emerges, roaring with power that could end everything, and you're the only one standing in the way. Diamond and Pearl, released in Japan late 2006, hitting the West in 2007, and they sold millions because they captured that sense of wonder mixed with high-stakes drama. Of course, no generation is complete without evolutions and surprises, and Gen 4 delivered on both fronts. Over 100 new Pokémon joined the roster, from the adorable Starly Flock to the haunting Spiritomb, a ghostly fusion sealed in an odd keystone. The evolutions felt meaningful too, Think of how Eevee's new forms, like Leafeon and Glaceon, tied into the environment, evolving near mossy rocks or icy shards. It encouraged exploration, rewarding you for wandering off the path. And the underground, that mini-game where you dug for treasures and fossils, it was a sneaky way to keep you hooked for hours, building bases and trading spheres with friends. But beneath the fun, there was this undercurrent of connectivity starting to bubble up. For the first time, wireless adapters let you trade and battle locally, without cables. A small step that hinted at bigger things. You could link up with nearby players, swap that hard-earned Rhyperior, and feel the series expanding beyond solo play. Fast forward to 2008, and Platinum arrived like a polished gem, refining everything while twisting the formula in unexpected ways. This enhanced version didn't just add content, it warped reality with the Distortion world, a psychedelic realm where gravity flips, platforms float, and puzzles defy logic. Led by the mischievous Giratina, the renegade Pokémon of antimatter, this dimension serves as the stage for a showdown that questions the nature of order and chaos. You enter it through a tear in the world, navigating inverted landscapes where up is down and foes phase in and out. It's disorienting, thrilling, and it ties directly into the mythology, showing Giratina's banishment as a necessary balance to Dialga and Palkia's dominance. Platinum smartly overhauls the gym challenge too, ditching the linear path for a more open feel after the Elite Four, letting you tackle the battle frontier, a gauntlet of 28 tough leaders echoing Emerald's triumphs. But the Distortion world? That's the mind-bender. Imagine solving puzzles where you push boulders across warped grids, or battling in a space where your Pokémon's shadows stretch endlessly. It was a twist on traditional gyms, making the journey feel less like climbing a ladder and more like navigating a fractured dream. Critics and fans alike praised how it elevated the story, giving Cyrus a redemption arc that's equal parts tragic and profound. He doesn't just vanish, his ideals linger, forcing you to reflect on what perfection really means. Platinum also polished the visuals on the Nintendo DS with double-screen features shining through animations that popped. Watch a Lucario's Aura Sphere charge, with blue energy crackling across both screens. The post-game content exploded too, with the Hall of Fame leading straight into Stark Mountain's volcanic depths, or the Seabreak Path's serene vibes. And for collectors, the ability to catch every Pokémon from previous generations via transfers started bridging the Pokédex gaps, making your Diamond save file feel alive with history. You know that rush when you finally snag a shiny Bidoof after hours of soft resetting? Platinum amplified those moments, turning grinding into a gateway for deeper obsession. By 2009, the generation wasn't done evolving. Heart Gold and Soul Silver burst onto the scene as faithful yet innovative remakes of the beloved Gold and Silver, transplanting Johto's heartfelt tale to the DS with modern flair. You step back into New Barktown, choosing Chikorita or Cyndaquil, but now with running shoes from the start and a day-night cycle that breathes life into the world. The remakes honoured the originals by expanding Kanto's postgame, letting you conquer it all over again with a team honed in Johto's rolling hills and misty routes. But the real dawn of connectivity came with the Pokewalker, a clip-on pedometer that synced with your game. You could transfer a Pokémon to it, walk real-world steps to level it up, and even hunt for rare items or encounters based on your location. Imagine striding through your neighbourhood, your phone buzzing. No, wait, this was 2009, so it's that little device counting every step, turning your daily jog into a Pokémon quest. It pioneered real-world integration, blurring lines between game and life, and foreshadowed the mobile revolution to come. Players raved about finding Voltorb in urban areas or rare berries in parks. It made Pokémon feel portable, personal, like your team was always with you. These remakes didn't skimp on emotion either. The legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, Suicune, roam the wild now, forcing you to chase them across regions in a thrilling hunt. And Ho-Oh and Lugia, their towers call to you with music that swells in your chest, evoking that same awe from the 90s, but sharper, more vivid. The Pokegear evolved into a multifunctional tool, with a phone for calling your mum, yes, she still worries, and a radio tuning into wandering Pokémon cries. Heart Gold and Soul Silver captured lightning in a bottle, blending nostalgia with fresh mechanics, and they outsold expectations by tapping into fans' longing for Johto's charm. You could feel the series maturing, honouring its roots while reaching out to new players. Throughout Generation 4, connectivity wasn't just a buzzword, it was the spark that ignited global communities. Wi-Fi centres popped up in games, letting you trade across oceans or battle strangers in real time. A far cry from the cable-linked trades of old. Suddenly, that Garchomp from Japan could join your Sinnoh squad, or you'd pit your Empoleon against a Californian trainer's Weavile. It fostered rivalries, friendships, and strategies shared on emerging forums. But with great power came glitches, like the occasional disconnect mid-battle that left you fuming, and it set the stage for the online battles that would define the future. Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, they weren't isolated adventures. They connected you to a worldwide web of trainers, making victories shared and defeats communal lessons. Think about the impact. Sales topped 25 million across the generation, proving Pokemon's staying power as it entered its teens. The anime adapted Sinnoh's myths with Dawn as the new coordinator star, her contests adding flair to Ash's gym runs. Merch flew off shelves, Pikachu plushies with Dialga motifs, trading cards featuring the Lake Trio, and competitively, the physical special split birthed metas that World Championships still echo, with teams built around coverage, prediction, and that sweet synergy. You might recall your first Wi-Fi trade, the anticipation as the bars connected, or the heartbreak of a surprise earthquake from an opponent's golem. These games made you part of something bigger, a connectivity dawn that lit the path forward. Yet as wireless links strengthened and online trades flourished, tensions brewed in the competitive scene. What happens when global battles expose imbalances and players demand more from the system? That's the story heading into Wi-Fi wars and global battles, where the real clashes begin, ones that could reshape Pokémon forever. You won't want to miss how it all escalates. Wi-Fi wars and global battles. By 2006, Pokémon wasn't just a game anymore. It was a worldwide obsession, and Generation 4 was about to turn it into a global showdown. Diamond and Pearl launched that year on the Nintendo DS, bringing with it something revolutionary: built-in wireless connectivity that let players link up without cables, right from their handhelds. You could trade Pokémon or jump into battles with friends across the room, or even strangers nearby, all through infrared or local wireless signals. But the real game changer came soon after, with the introduction of global Wi-Fi. Suddenly the internet connected Pokémon trainers everywhere, standardizing online trading and battling in ways that had never been done before. No more waiting for events or mail trades. You could swap that rare shiny you caught for someone else's powerhouse in seconds, bridging gaps between Japan, Europe, and North America. Think about what that meant for you as a player back then. You're sitting in your living room, DS in hand, and with a quick connection to Nintendo's Wi-Fi service, you're pitted against trainers from Tokyo or Texas. The global trade system became this bustling marketplace where Pokémon flowed freely, players hunting for version exclusives like Spiritomb or specific natures for competitive teams, and battling It exploded into organized chaos. The Wi-Fi plaza turned into a virtual hub, a place to chat, trade, and duke it out in real-time matches. What started as simple link battles evolved into structured tournaments with official rule sets from Pokémon centers and online ladders that tracked your wins. You felt that rush, didn't you? The anticipation of queuing up, the strategy of picking your team, knowing your Electivire could counter their Garchomp from halfway around the world. This wireless revolution didn't just connect players, it birthed a thriving competitive scene that still echoes today. Generation 4 standardized everything. IVs, EVs, natures, all those hidden stats that hardcore trainers obsessed over. Online battles meant you could test your metagame against the best, refining strategies for the emerging battle frontier. Remember the post-game challenges in Diamond and Pearl? They were tough, but Wi-Fi took it further, letting you enter official championships. The first World Championships in 2009 drew thousands, with kids and adults alike flying to Hawaii to compete for glory. Pokémon became a skill-based esport before esports were even a thing. Trainers formed communities on forums, sharing breeding tips and team builds, turning casual play into a legitimate pursuit. You might have spent hours EV training your Infernape, only to see it shine in a ranked match that felt like the Olympics. That standardization created fairness, accessibility, and endless replayability, pulling in newcomers while challenging veterans to push boundaries. But Pokémon's reach in the 2000s went far beyond the DS screen. It dominated pop culture like few franchises ever have. The anime was a staple on Saturday mornings, but the movies, they were blockbuster events that packed theatres and raked in fortunes. Take Pokémon. The movie 2000, released in 1999, but hitting its stride into the new millennium. It grossed over $85 million worldwide, blending epic storytelling with those unforgettable Pokémon clashes. Ash and his crew sail into a stormy adventure, chasing legendary birds and uncovering an island's secrets, all while the power of friendship saves the day. You remember the spectacle, right? The animation popped with vibrant seas and soaring Lugia, drawing families who might never touch a Game Boy. That film alone solidified Pokémon as a cinematic force, spawning merchandise tie-ins and fan theories that buzzed for years. By the mid-2000s, every summer brought a new hit: Destiny Deoxys, Lucario, and the Mystery of Mew, each pulling in tens of millions and expanding the lore that tied back to the games. The financial success spoke volumes. Nintendo reported Pokémon as their golden goose, with revenues soaring past billions annually from games, cards, and films combined. You could walk into any store and find plushies, backpacks, even breakfast cereals featuring Pikachu. The 2000s marked Pokémon's peak cultural invasion. Theme park attractions in Japan, crossover events with other brands, and a fan base that spanned generations. Kids traded cards at school, adults collected rare holographics, and everyone tuned in for the latest episode. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a shared language, a way to connect across borders. How did a pocket monster from 1996 become this unstoppable empire? The answer lay in its ability to evolve, mirroring the tech boom of the era. While the world embraced broadband and mobiles, Pokémon wired itself into that digital fabric, making every player feel part of something massive. Yet, amid the mainline game's wireless triumphs, spin-offs added layers of heart that deepened the bond. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, Blue Rescue Team dropped in 2005 for Game Boy Advance, with a DS version following, flipping the script entirely. Here, you weren't a human trainer. You were a Pokémon, amnesiac, and lost in a world of anthropomorphic creatures. Teaming up with a partner Pokémon, you'd embark on dungeon-crawling quests, rescuing others from treacherous, ever-shifting mazes. No items persist between runs. It's pure roguelike tension, where strategy and luck collide. But what made it stick was the emotion. Your partner wasn't just an AI buddy. They had a personality, a backstory that unfolded through heartfelt dialogues. Imagine being a Charmander paired with a squishy Squirtle, facing collapsing floors and enemy ambushes, only to share a quiet moment by a campfire, pondering your forgotten past. These games fostered bonds that felt profoundly personal. You'd grind through itemless dungeons, your heart racing as you protect your teammate, feeling that pang when they faint and you barely escape. The story arcs tugged at strings, revealing your human origins, the world's impending doom, and the unbreakable trust between you and your Pokémon. Players poured hours into recruiting species for their base, customizing it into a rescue hub, all while uncovering a narrative that mirrored the main series themes of partnership. Mystery Dungeon wasn't about collecting badges, it was about loyalty, sacrifice, and those quiet victories that make you care. You might have replayed it just to experience a different starter duo, each run building new emotional ties. Spin-offs like this expanded Pokémon's soul, proving it could thrive in genres beyond RPGs, drawing in fans who craved deeper stories. As Generation 4 progressed, Platinum in 2008 refined the formula with enhanced graphics and the Distortion world, a mind-bending psychic realm that twisted battles and puzzles. Then came Heart Gold and Soul Silver in 2009, remaking Gold and Silver with DS flair. The Pokewalker accessory let you carry a Pokémon on walks in the real world, syncing steps back to the game for bonuses. Wireless features carried over, but now with touchscreen innovations and backward compatibility via PAL Park. Trading across generations became seamless, letting your Gen 3 favourites mingle with Sinnoh stars. The competitive scene heated up further. Official VGC formats emphasised doubles battles, with moves like Draco Meteor shaking up metas. You could feel the evolution. The games weren't static. They adapted, responding to player feedback and tech advances. Global events amplified the hype. Wi-Fi distributions for mythicals like Darkrai or Shaman turned logins into holidays, with thousands queuing online. The Pokémon Company leaned into this, hosting download parties at stores and online, battling against international foes, honed skills, exposing you to diverse strategies, like Europe's love for stall teams or Japan's aggressive sweeps. Forums like Smogon dissected every patch, breeding a knowledge-sharing culture that made Pokémon accessible yet deep. For newcomers, it was intimidating. For pros, exhilarating. That thriving scene created legends. Kids who started with trades and ended up as world champs, their stories inspiring the next wave. Movies kept the momentum cinematic. After the movie 2000's success, the 2000 slate included Pokémon Heroes in 2002, a Venice-set mystery with Latios and Latias that charmed with its romance and chases, grossing millions more. These films weren't side stories. They wove into the anime, hyping game releases and boosting sales. By 2006, with Diamond and Pearl's launch, the movie Spell of the Unknown tied into ruins and enigmas, mirroring the game's archaeological vibes. Box office hauls funded expansions, from manga to live shows, cementing Pokémon's 2000s reign. You lived it, the posters in malls, the toys under the tree, the way it infiltrated every corner of youth culture. Spin-offs continued innovating emotionally. Explorers of Time and Darkness in 2007 built on Mystery Dungeon's foundation, introducing time travel twists and even more poignant partner dynamics. You'd recruit hundreds of Pokémon, each with unique cries and animations, turning your guild into a living community. The stakes felt real. Prophecies of paralysis, betrayals that hit hard, resolutions that left you misty-eyed. These weren't filler games. They explored what it means to be Pokémon, fostering empathy that carried over to mainline play. When you returned to battling your Lucario, it wasn't just a fighter, it was a friend with history. Wireless standardization peaked with Heart Gold and Soul Silver's global connectivity, allowing cross-region trades that diversified gene pools. Competitive play formalized with battle towers and online rankings, where you'd climb leaderboards, tweaking teams for optimal coverage. The era's dominance showed in numbers. Over 150 million games sold by decade's end, movies totaling hundreds of millions, and a fan base that organised its own tournaments. Pokémon had wired the world, turning solitary adventures into shared epics. But as the DS era wound down, whispers of change stirred. Generation V loomed on the horizon, promising a bold reset. Up next in Black and White's fresh start, you'll discover how Pokémon dared to wipe the slate clean, introducing a world that questioned everything you thought you knew about catching them all. Get ready for a revolution that divided fans and redefined the journey. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Black and White's fresh start. In 2010, Pokémon took a bold step forward by completely overhauling its world, introducing Generation V with Black and White, games that dared to start fresh in a franchise built on familiarity. You might remember the thrill of discovering Kanto or Johto, but here, Game Freak wiped the slate clean, challenging every trainer to adapt to an entirely new ecosystem. No more relying on your old favourites from previous generations. These games locked you into a regional Pokédex of just 156 brand new Pokémon, forcing you to rethink strategies from the ground up. It was a risky move, one that sparked debates among fans about whether Pokémon was evolving or alienating its core audience, but it paid off by injecting pure excitement into the series. Picture yourself booting up Pokémon Black for the first time on your Nintendo DS. You're in Unova, a region inspired by New York City, with towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and a subway system that actually plays a role in your journey. The story kicks off in Nuvema Town, a quiet suburb where you meet your childhood friend Bianca and rival Cherin, both eager to start their own Pokémon adventures. But right away, the game sets its tone with Professor Juniper, who hands you your starter, Snivy, the cool grass-type snake, Tepig, the fiery piglet, or Oshawott, the adorable water otter. These aren't just cute additions, they're the foundation of a narrative that dives deep into themes of truth, ideals, and the ethics of Pokémon training. What made Black and White stand out was that Pokédex reset I mentioned. For the first 90% of the game, you couldn't catch or use Pokémon from older generations. It was like being dropped into a foreign land with no map, compelling you to explore every blade of grass in Unova to build your team from scratch. Imagine grinding levels with Patrat, that unassuming rat Pokémon, or discovering the majestic Samurott evolving from Oshawott, its shell transforming into a samurai blade. The regional Pokédex wasn't just smaller, it was diverse, packed with Pokémon that drew from mythology, urban life, and even pop culture nods. Take the elemental monkeys, Panzige, Panzir, and Panpour, each tied to a different type, and reflecting the balance of nature in a modern world. As you progress, the game unfolds a gripping story centered on Team Plasma, a group of eco-terrorists led by the enigmatic N and his king, Getsis. They're not your typical villainous team plotting world domination for greed. They preach liberation for Pokémon, arguing that trainers enslave their partners. It gets philosophical fast. N, with his tragic backstory and ability to communicate with Pokémon, becomes one of the most memorable characters in the series. You start questioning your own role as a trainer. Is battling exploitation, or is it a bond? These themes hit harder than ever, especially when N releases his own legendary Pokémon, Zekrom in black or Reshiram in white, forcing you into epic confrontations that feel personal. Gameplay-wise, Black and White introduced innovations that kept things fresh. Seasons changed dynamically in Unova, affecting wild encounters. Spring blooms with floral Pokémon. Winter hides ice types in the snow. Triple and rotation battles added layers to strategy, letting you swap Pokémon mid-fight for tactical surprises. And the Pokémon musical, that was a quirky diversion where you dressed up your team for stage performances, earning accessories, and just having fun in a way Pokémon hadn't before. It was all about immersion, making Unova feel alive and responsive to your choices. By the time you reach the Pokémon League, battling Alder, the champion who's more mentor than foe, you realise how far you've come. Unova's Elite Four and champion aren't pushovers. Their teams demand adaptation, rewarding creative-type matchups over brute force. Post-game, the gates finally open, letting you access the National Pokédex and trade with older gens. But that initial restriction, it made every capture feel earned, every victory a testament to your ingenuity. Fast forward 2 years to 2012, and Pokémon doubled down on this fresh start with Black 2 and White 2, the first true direct sequels in the mainline series. Set 2 years after the events of the originals, these games pick up the Unova story without retelling it, assuming you've played Black or White. It's a mature approach, treating players like veterans ready for more. You return to Unova, but it's changed. New areas like the Join Avenue, where you manage a social hub, and the Pokémon World Tournament, pitting you against trainers from past games, including champions like Cynthia or Blue. The plot evolves Team Plasma's arc in surprising ways. Getsy's is back, more ruthless, with a new shadow organisation pulling strings. N appears again, now wandering as a more nuanced figure, his ideals clashing with reality. You get a new protagonist from Aspertia City, with Roxy as your gym leader rival, a punk rock poison-type user who performs concerts before battles. It's wild how the sequels expand on the moral questions from Black and White, showing the long-term consequences of the Plasma Uprising. Legendary encounters ramp up too, with Kyurem fusing into Black Kyurem or White Kyurem depending on your version, creating black hole-like attacks that shake the DS screen. Black 2 and White 2 refined the formula masterfully. Hidden grottos offered rare items and Pokémon with perfect IVs, a nod to competitive players. The medal system tracked achievements, and challenge mode cranked up difficulty for replays. Unova felt bigger, with new routes, a Ferris wheel date minigame in Join Avenue, and even a movie theatre where Pokémon watch films. It was Pokémon growing up alongside its fans, blending nostalgia with innovation. Sales-wise, they were massive hits, proving sequels could thrive without remakes. But the fresh start wasn't just in the games, it echoed across the franchise. The anime's Best Wishes arc, starting around the same time, kept the momentum rolling by introducing Ash to Unova with a revamped cast. Gone were the familiar Brock and Dawn. Enter new rivals like Trip, a serious photographer with a serious attitude, and later Seelan, the gourmet connoisseur who analyses battles like fine cuisine. Iris joins as a wild dragon-type specialist, calling Ash a kid and adding spunk to the team. The arc dives into Unova's lore, with episodes featuring legendary dragons and Team Plasma's schemes mirroring the games. It maintained that narrative drive, hooking younger viewers while nodding to the deeper storylines fans loved. Best Wishes wasn't just filler, It explored themes of growth, with Ash maturing through losses and wins, rivalries that pushed him harder than ever. You can feel the shift in how Pokémon was positioning itself by 2010. After the remakes and expansions of Generation 4, Black and White signaled a willingness to experiment. The DS hardware allowed for better graphics, with animated sprites that brought Pokémon to life. Watch Darmanitan change forms in battle, or hear the cries of the new legendaries echo with power. Sound design stepped up too, with orchestral themes for Unova's cities that captured the urban pulse. And competitively, the battle subway became a hotspot, mirroring real-world subway lines for endless challenges. Let's talk specifics on some standout Pokémon that forced that adaptation. Sewaddle evolves into Levani, a bug type that sews clothes for you in-game, a nurturing twist on evolution. Or the mighty Haxorus, a dragon-type powerhouse with mold breaker ability, shattering opponent defenses. Then there's the surprise hits like Conkeldurr, the concrete-wielding fighter, or Braviary, the eagle of integrity soaring over Unova's skies. Each one had a design philosophy tying back to the region's industrial theme, making collection addictive. You had to scout for the seasonal exclusives, like Vanillite in winter caves, turning exploration into a treasure hunt. The impact on the community was huge. Forums buzzed with debates. Was the Pokédex reset genius or gatekeeping? It sparked creativity, with players sharing Unova-only teams online. Tournaments focused on new meta, like weather strategies with new abilities, such as Turbo Blaze from Reshiram. And for newcomers, it lowered the barrier. No need to catch up on 400 plus Pokémon. Just dive into 156 and thrive. Black 2 and White 2 built on this by adding depth to characters. Colress, the mad scientist, experiments with controlling Pokémon, adding sci-fi flair. Hugh, your hot-headed rival, has a personal stake with his stolen Tepig, driving emotional battles. The sequels even retconned elements from the first games, showing how N's actions rippled through society. It's storytelling ambition that set a precedent for future entries. In the anime, Best Wishes pushed boundaries too. Episodes like the one where Ash battles Alder highlight mentorship, while rival showdowns with Trip build tension over seasons. New Pokémon like Oshawott Antics, constantly popping out of its Pokeball, added humour, balancing the drama. It kept the franchise's heart beating, ensuring kids glued to screens while adults appreciated the layers. This era solidified Pokémon's adaptability. From the reset that challenged you to the sequels that rewarded loyalty, Generation V proved the series could reinvent without losing soul. Sales topped 30 million combined, and it bridged to mobile with hints of connectivity. But as Unova's story wrapped, whispers of bigger changes loomed. Full 3D worlds and mechanics that would redefine battles. That brings us to the next evolution. In Chapter 8, X and Y's 3D Mega Leap. What if Pokémon stepped into a fully realised three-dimensional realm, introducing transformations that turned the tide of every fight? You won't want to miss how this leap changed everything. X and Y's 3D Mega Leap. In 2013, Pokémon took its biggest visual leap yet with X and Y, the first games to fully embrace three-dimensional worlds that made every battle and exploration feel alive in ways fans had only dreamed of. You remember those pixelated sprites from the early days, right? Well, this was the moment Game Freak said goodbye to that era for good, plunging us into a fully rendered Kalos region where your Pokémon didn't just move. They dashed, leaped, and clashed with a depth that pulled you right into the screen. Picture catching your first wild Pokémon, not on a flat grid, but in a sprawling forest, where leaves rustle and sunlight filters through the trees. It was revolutionary, and it set the stage for everything that followed. But what really electrified the community were the Mega Evolutions. This temporary power-up system that let your favourite Pokémon transform mid-battle into something fiercer, more majestic. You'd hold a special stone, like the one for Charizard, and watch as your loyal companion bursts with energy, gaining new abilities and stats that could turn the tide against even the toughest opponents. Mega Charizard X, with its black wings and blue flames, or Mega Blaziken kicking up a storm of speed, these weren't just cosmetic changes. They added strategy layers, forcing you to think about timing and which evolutions to prioritize. Fans went wild, forums lit up with debates over the coolest designs, and suddenly collecting wasn't just about the Pokédex, it was about unlocking these hidden potentials. I mean, how many times did you grind for that one Mega Stone, heart racing as you imagined the epic showdowns ahead? And then there was the Fairy type, a fresh addition that shook up the entire type chart like nothing before. Dragons had ruled supreme for generations, shrugging off attacks that should have felled them. But fairies, they hit dragons for super effective damage, flipping the meta on its head. Sylveon, evolving from Eevee with its ribbon-like feelers, became an instant icon, charming foes while dismantling powerhouses like Rayquaza. It wasn't arbitrary either. The developers crafted it to balance the game, ensuring no single type dominated. You could feel the shift in competitive play. Trainers who relied on dragon-heavy teams had to adapt or get left behind. It sparked endless discussions. Was this the saviour Pokémon needed, or just a clever counter? Either way, it injected new life into battles that had started to feel predictable. Now let's talk about Kalos itself, this region inspired by France that blended high fashion with ancient mysteries in a way that hooked you from the moment you stepped off the train in Lumiose City. Sure, on the surface it's all about style, trainers strutting in chic outfits, boutiques where you could customize your look, and even Pokémon like Furfrou getting fancy trims at the groomer. It felt glamorous, almost like you were part of a runway show crossed with an adventure. But peel back those layers, and Kalos reveals a darker, more profound story about eternal life and the scars of ancient wars. The lore dives deep into themes of immortality's cost, with legends of a king who sought to conquer death itself, unleashing devastation that echoes through time. Take Azid, the enigmatic figure at the heart of it all. He's this wandering immortal, burdened by a past where he built the ultimate weapon to end a brutal war between humans and Pokémon. You encounter hints of this throughout the game, ruins scattered across the map, whispering of battles that raged centuries ago. As you progress, piecing together the puzzle, you realise Kalos isn't just pretty, it's a graveyard of forgotten conflicts. The legendary Pokémon Xerneas and Yveltal embody life and destruction, their clash tied to that eternal cycle. It made you pause during your journey, wondering if victory always comes at such a price. And when the truth unfolds in the climax, with Azzy's tragic revelation, it hits hard. Eternal life isn't a gift, but a curse that warps everything it touches. This depth elevated X and Y beyond mere monster collecting. It was a narrative that lingered, making you reflect on loss and renewal long after the credits rolled. Exploring Kalos only amplified that immersion. The region's design encouraged wandering off the path, rolling hills dotted with wildflowers, coastal cliffs where waves crash below, and that massive Lumiose City with its towering prism tower glowing like a beacon. You could roller skate through streets lined with cafes, chat with NPCs who dropped lore bombs casually, or dive into the underground scene for rare encounters. It was the first time Pokémon felt truly explorable in 3D, with no loading screens breaking the flow. And the music? Those orchestral swells during Mega Evolutions, or the haunting flute melody in ancient ruins. They pulled at your emotions, making every victory feel earned. Of course, X and Y weren't without their flaws. The story, while ambitious, sometimes got overshadowed by the shiny new features, and some areas felt a bit empty compared to later games. But that debut of full 3D, it was a gamble that paid off huge. Sales skyrocketed, proving fans were ready for this evolution. It paved the way for Pokémon to compete with modern blockbusters, not just nostalgia trips. You could see the influence immediately. Battles now had dynamic camera angles, showing off those megaforms in glorious detail. Trainers like Diantha, the elegant champion with her Gardevoir, embodied Carlos's blend of grace and power, challenging you to match her poise. Diving deeper into Mega Evolutions, let's break down how they worked mechanically, because this system was a masterclass in excitement. Each Pokémon needed a specific Megastone, found hidden in the world or earned through quests. During battle, you'd activate it once per fight, but only if that Pokémon was holding the stone and you had the Keystone on your trainer. The transformations weren't random, they often boosted weaknesses into strengths. Take Mega Venusaur, its thick vines and poison powers made it a tank against foes that once shredded it. Or Mega Lucario, channeling aura like a steel-clad warrior, its attacks slicing through defences. Collectors scoured Carlos for these stones, turning side quests into treasure hunts. And the designs? Inspired by mythology and nature, they added personality. Mega Gengar as a shadowy imp, grinning mischievously. It made battles personal. You'd build teams around your favourites, dreaming of that momentary God mode surge. The fairy type's introduction was equally calculated. Before X and Y, dragons like Salamence or Garchomp were meta kings, immune to many threats. Fairies changed that overnight, resisting dragon fighting and dark moves while hitting back hard. Clefairy, a forgotten cute mon, suddenly got a renaissance as Clefable, shrugging off dragonfire. New additions like Deden, a cheeky electric fairy rodent, brought whimsy to teams. But it wasn't just balance, it tied into the lore. Fairies evoked magic and innocence, countering the raw destruction of dragons, mirroring Carlos's themes of harmony amid chaos. In doubles battles or the new online facilities, you'd see strategies evolve. Pair a fairy with a steel type for coverage and watch opponents scramble. It's reignited the competitive scene, with tournaments buzzing about. Fairy meta shifts. Carlos's hidden depths really shine in its side stories and post-game. The Friend Safari, where you visit other players' themed areas for unique encounters, added a social layer to the 3D world. But the real gut punch comes from the war lore. Millennia ago, humans and Pokémon fought in a conflict so devastating that AZ, grieving his lost Flut, forged a machine powered by infinite energy. Groudon's cells, if rumours hold. It ended the war, but caused a cataclysm, scattering life across the region. Yveltal absorbed the fallen energies, becoming destruction incarnate, while Xerneas granted life anew. You feel this in moments like the final battle atop the ultimate weapon, where AZ confronts his past. It's poignant. Eternal life meant watching everyone you love die over and over. This backstory influenced how you viewed trainers like Lysandra, the villain obsessed with beauty through destruction, echoing AZ's hubris. It made Carlos feel alive with history, not just a backdrop. As 2013 wrapped up, the buzz around X and Y carried into 2014 with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the remakes of the beloved Generation 3 games that brought Hoenn roaring back with fresh mechanics. These weren't lazy ports, they expanded on the originals, introducing the soaring mechanic that let you ride Latios or Latias across the skies, scouting for hidden islands or rare Pokémon from above. It reignited that pure nostalgia for Ruby and Sapphire. but in full 3D glory, with updated graphics that made the volcanic routes and underwater dives breathtaking. Remember diving into Seafloor Cavern as a kid on the GBA? Now you could explore it in real time, currents pulling you through coral reefs teeming with life. The remakes honoured Hoenn's legacy, Team Magma and Aqua scheming for land and sea, while adding mega evolutions to classics like Rayquaza, who could now mega evolve into a beast that blots out the sun. Soaring wasn't just travel, it was a gateway to the battle resort, a hub for endgame challenges, and secret bases evolved into personal Pokémon villages you could share online. The Delta episode, a new story arc involving Deoxys and meteorites, tied into the region's spacey lore, giving closure to loose ends from the originals. Fans who grew up with Hoenn felt that rush of rediscovery, flying over Route 119's rainy paths, battling the Elite Four again, but with modern twists like Horde encounters for faster grinding. It was nostalgic fuel, selling millions and proving remakes could innovate. The music remixes, blending chiptune nostalgia with orchestral flair, hit right in the feels during gym battles or the legendary summons of Groudon and Kyogre. These games solidified Generation 6 as a turning point. X and Y's 3D leap made Pokémon feel current, while Auras bridged old and new, letting veterans relive triumphs with enhanced tools. The Fairy type and Megas influenced every future title, and Kalus's lore set a bar for storytelling depth. You couldn't help but wonder what came next. How would Pokémon push boundaries even further? Up next, we'll dive into Sun, Moon, and the Alolan Shift, where the series trades continents for islands and turns the world upside down in ways that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Pokémon adventures. Sun, Moon, and the Alolan Shift. In 2016, Pokémon took a daring leap across the ocean to the sun-soaked islands of Alola, where the familiar path of gym badges gave way to something entirely new. A quest through ancient trials that tested not just your Pokémon's strength, but your bond with the wild world around you. You remember how the series had evolved through those classic regions, right? From Kanto's bustling cities to Kalos's elegant boulevards. But now, with Pokémon Sun and Moon, Game Freak decided it was time to shake things up, ditching the 8 gyms entirely in favour of a fresh structure called the Island Challenge. Imagine stepping off the boat in Alola, inspired by Hawaii's vibrant culture, where every island holds its own guardian deity, a legendary Pokémon watching over the land. Your journey isn't about collecting badges from stern leaders anymore. It's about proving yourself through trials set by kahunas and captains, each one weaving mythology and adventure into the fabric of the game. What made this shift so revolutionary was how it emphasised exploration over rote battling. You'd hike through lush jungles, surf across turquoise waves, and climb volcanic peaks, all while tackling these trials that felt like mini-quests straight out of a legend. Take the first island, Melemele, for example. Instead of marching to a gym, you befriend a quirky professor named Kukue and dive into the grand trial at the Verdant Cavern. There you face off against a totem Pokémon, a powered-up version of a familiar species, like a massive Rattata, with allies buzzing around it, making every encounter feel alive and unpredictable. And just when you think you've mastered the basics, Sun and Moon introduce Z moves, these explosive, one-time super attacks that channel the power of a sparkling Z crystal. Picture this: your Pikachu, glowing with electric energy, unleashing a gigavolt havoc that lights up the screen in a burst of raw power, capable of turning the tide in ways no hyper beam ever could. It's not just a mechanic, it's a spectacle that makes you feel like you're tapping into the island's ancient spirits. But why the change? Game Freak wanted to make Pokémon feel more personal, more connected to the environment. Alola's setting was a breath of fresh air. Tropical beaches where you could ride Tauros like a taxi, or spot new regional variants like the fiery Alolan Vulpix, a fox kit that evolves into the icy Ninetales. These weren't just reskins, they brought new types like the ice-type Vulpix thriving in snowy mountains, flipping your strategies upside down. You see, the Island Challenge forced you to think beyond grinding levels. Each trial captain, like the fiery Lana with her water Pokémon, or the mysterious Acerola in her haunted trial, challenged you to solve puzzles, gather ingredients, or battle in creative ways. It was like the game was whispering to you, hey, this isn't just about winning fights, it's about understanding the rhythm of Alola. And let's be honest, after years of the same gym formula, this felt liberating. Sales exploded, over 16 million copies worldwide, proving that fans were ready for Pokémon to evolve, literally and figuratively. As you progressed through Akala, Ula Ula and Pony Islands, the stakes ramped up. The Kahunas, wise leaders like Hala or Olivia, weren't pushovers. Their battles tested your team-building skills against rock-solid defences or thunderous waves. But the real heart of Sun and Moon lay in the story. You play as a kid from another region, arriving in Alola to escape illness, or just seek adventure, only to uncover a tale of conservation versus exploitation. The Ether Foundation starts as this noble group saving Pokémon, but twists reveal darker secrets, pulling you into a narrative about protecting the islands from otherworldly threats. It's deeper than before, blending environmental themes with that classic Pokémon wonder. And the Rotom Pokédex? That sassy little guide zipping around your screen, narrating your journey with quips and facts. It made the world feel interactive, like you had a companion egging you on every step. Of course, no Pokémon generation is complete without new legendaries, and Sun and Moon delivered with the Tapu Guardians, ethereal beings like Tapu Koko, an electric fairy type that dances into battle on steel drums. Then there are the starter Pokémon, Rowlet the Owl, Litten the Firecat, and Poplio the Seal, each evolving into fan favourites like Decidueye, the Archer Grass Ghost, or Primarina, the Diva Water Fairy. You could spend hours debating which path to take, but the game's day-night cycle and weather effects made every choice matter. Ride the waves at night under a full moon in Sun, or chase the sunrise in Moon. Subtle differences that tied into the theme of balance. It was Pokémon saying, the world turns, and so must you. Fans raved about the character designs too. How your rival, with his endless optimism and Malasada obsession, brought levity, while the villain Lucamine's descent into obsession added emotional weight. You felt for these characters, rooting for them as much as your own team. Fast forward to 2017, and Game Freak wasn't done innovating. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon arrived as enhanced versions, but they weren't just remakes. They expanded the lore in ways that bent reality itself. Building on the original's ending, these games plunge you deeper into the mysteries of ultra space, wormholes ripping open to parallel dimensions. Remember those ultra beasts? Bizarre, otherworldly. Pokémon like the dragon-like Celestiela or the psychic poison Pheromosa, designed like escaped experiments from another universe. They weren't just strong, they were alien, with lore tying them to the originals as invaders from beyond. You chase them through ultra wormholes, these swirling portals that pop up randomly, leading to mini adventures where you snag rare items or battle in distorted arenas. It's like Pokémon got a sci-fi upgrade, revealing that Alola's legends connect to a multiverse teeming with possibilities. The story amps up the drama too. In Ultra Sun, you team with an alternate Lily and a mysterious figure from another dimension, uncovering how Lucamine's experiments tore open these rifts. Ultramoon flips it with a different timeline, introducing Necrozma, this crystalline ultra beast that absorbs light, and Solgaleo, or Lunala, to become the blinding Ultra Necrozma. Battles against it feel epic, with Z moves clashing in photon geysers that shake your DS. And the Island Challenge? It's refined, with new trials and post-game content that lets you battle the battle tree. A tournament hall packed with trainers from across the series. You could face Red himself, that silent protagonist from Kanto, in a nod to the roots, while pushing you to optimize your team. Sales hit another 10 million, but more importantly, it sparked endless theories. Were these Ultra Beasts hints at future games? The multiverse idea opened doors, making you wonder what else lurked beyond the stars. Yet 2017 wasn't the end of Generation 7 surprises. As the Nintendo Switch loomed on the horizon, 2018 brought Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, a bold hybrid that bridged the gap between the main series and the mobile smash hit Pokémon Go. Released alongside the Switch launch, these weren't traditional entries. They remade the original Red and Blue, but infused with Go's motion controls and simplified catching mechanics. No more wild battles grinding you down. Instead, you sneak up on Pokémon in the grass, throw a Pokeball with Joy-Con motion or touchscreen, and chain catches for bonuses. It was designed for newcomers, especially those hooked on Go's augmented reality hunts, letting you transfer catches from your phone to build a living Pokédex. Picture wandering Kanto's familiar routes, but now in full 3D glory, with Pikachu or Eevee as your permanent partner, riding on your shoulder and reacting to your touches. Mega Evolutions returned, and you could link up for co-op raids against legendaries like Mewtwo in the Cerulean Cave. It stripped away complexities, no abilities, no breeding, just pure joyful collection. Critics called it a gateway drug for the franchise, pulling in millions who never touched a mainline game. Over 15 million copies sold, proving that blending worlds could revitalize the classics. But it also sparked debate. Was this dumbing down Pokémon or smart evolution? You decide, but it felt like a love letter to the origins, with cameos from Go's team leaders and even Alolan forms sneaking in as bonuses. This Alolan shift marked a turning point, where Pokémon embraced change, trials over gyms, Z moves over raw stats, multiverse lore over standalone tales. It challenged you to adapt, just like the Pokémon themselves evolving in the wild. The island's spirit lingered, reminding us that growth comes from new horizons, not repeating the old paths. And as Generation 7 wrapped up, the series geared up for the Switch era, but not without some turbulence ahead. Up next, in Sword, Shield, and the Dexit drama, you'll discover how ambition clashed with backlash, leading to one of the biggest controversies in Pokémon history. Stick around, because what happened next nearly fractured the fan base. Sword, Shield, and the Dexit drama. In 2019, Pokémon stepped boldly into a new era with the launch of Sword and Shield, the first mainline games built from the ground up for the Nintendo Switch. You could feel the excitement building as Game Freak unveiled this 8th generation, promising a fresh adventure in the region of Galar, inspired by the rolling hills and bustling cities of the United Kingdom. Picture yourself booting up the game for the first time, the screen lighting up with vibrant, wild areas where Pokémon roam freely, and battles that feel more alive than ever. But what really set Sword and Shield apart were the Dynamax battles, this massive mechanic where your Pokémon could grow to gigantic sizes, unleashing powerful max moves in stadiums packed with cheering crowds. It was like stepping into a professional sports league, with gym challenges structured around massive arenas, each leader hosting their own spectacle under roaring lights. Hop on your bike, race through misty moors or urban sprawl, and challenge rivals in ways that blended exploration with high-stakes competition. The Switch's portability meant you could take this journey anywhere, swapping between handheld mode on a train or docked on your TV for those epic showdowns. Fans raved about how Galar captured that sense of national pride, with tea shops, curry cooking, and even a train system that zipped you across the map. Dynamax wasn't just a gimmick, it added strategy, forcing you to think about terrain and timing as your giant Charizard clashed with a towering Corviknight. For many, it was Pokémon evolving into something grander, more cinematic, ready to compete on the world stage. Yet, as the hype peaked, a storm was brewing that would shake the entire community to its core. Sword and Shield arrived with a controversial twist. The national Pokédex was slashed down dramatically. For the first time in the series' history, not every Pokémon from past generations would be catchable in the base game. Game Freak explained it as a necessary step to focus on quality, introducing over 80 new Pokémon while prioritizing deeper animations and a more immersive world. But to longtime fans, this felt like a betrayal. How could you build your dream team without access to favourites like Scyther or Milotic right from the start? The outcry exploded online, coining the term Dexit to describe this painful exclusion. Petitions surged on Change.org, gathering hundreds of thousands of signatures demanding a full national dex. Social media lit up with debates. Some accused the developers of laziness, pointing to reused models from previous games, while others defended the move as innovative, arguing that a bloated Pokédex had diluted the magic of discovery. You remember the forums buzzing, right? Threads dissecting every interview. Fans feeling torn between loving the new Galar natives, like the fierce Dragapult or the adorable Wooloo, and mourning the absence of beloved staples. It divided the fandom like never before, pitting accessibility against completeness. Casual players appreciated a streamlined experience, easier to jump into without grinding for transfers from older games. Hardcore collectors, though, they saw it as fracturing the Pokémon universe, making trades and battles feel incomplete. Events like Pokémon Day turned tense, with protests at Nintendo stores and viral videos calling out the paywall for missing Mons via future updates. This wasn't just a glitch, it sparked real conversations about what Pokémon should be, a never-ending archive or a fresh start each generation. The backlash hit hard, but Game Freak didn't back down entirely. They leaned into the Switch's online features, launching Pokémon Home as a cloud storage service to bridge the gap, letting you transfer Pokémon between games and even mobile apps. Still, the wound lingered, with sales topping 25 million copies worldwide, yet reviews mixed on that core issue. Dynamax tournaments in the wild area became a highlight, drawing in competitive players who adapted by building teams around the new mechanics, like stacking Max Airstream for speed boosts or Max Quake to raise defences. Galar's vibe, with its football-inspired stadiums and post-game Champion Cup, kept the momentum going, turning battles into ongoing leagues you could revisit any time. You could customise your look, ride your Pokémon across vast open fields, and uncover secrets in the foggy lake of outrage, where rare legendaries like Zacian and Zamazenta awaited as the box mascots, sword-wielding wolf heroes that embodied the game's dual themes. But the Dexit shadow loomed, influencing how fans approached the series. Some boycotted, sticking to fan games or ROM hacks for full Dex access. Others embraced the change, praising how it spotlighted Galar's ecosystem, from the industrial Hammerlock to the wild Isle of Armor tease in trailers. It forced everyone to question, Is Pokémon about hoarding every creature, or cherishing the ones that fit the story? The drama peaked at E3 that year, with Nintendo's direct drawing record views, only to face immediate waves of criticism. Developers responded with transparency, admitting resource limits on the ambitious 3D models, but it didn't quell the fire. In the end, Dexit highlighted a growing pains for a franchise ballooning beyond 900 Pokémon. How do you innovate without leaving fans behind? As 2020 rolled in amid a global pandemic that kept us all indoors, Pokémon doubled down on support for Sword and Shield with its first ever paid DLC expansions. The expansion pass dropped, introducing the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, marking a bold shift toward ongoing content in mainline games. First up was the Isle of Armor, a sprawling dojo island off Galar's coast, where you trained under Mustard, a retired champion voiced with gravelly wisdom. This wasn't just filler, it added Kubfu, a new legendary that evolved through intense tower trials, and brought back over 100 Pokémon previously cut from the base game, like Galarian forms of Meowth and Ponyta. You could surf across sun-drenched beaches, mine for apricorns, and max out your team's friendship in a relaxed summer camp atmosphere. It felt like Pokémon's answer to fan demands, restoring that completeness without overhauling the core. Then came the Crown Tundra, a frozen frontier in the snowy Dynamax factory ruins, packed with myth and mystery. Here, you assembled a legendary squad to chase down Calyrex, the ghostly king of the tundra, unlocking Regieleki and Regidrago as electric and dragon powerhouses. The DLC introduced raid dens for multiplayer Dynamax hunts, letting friends join from afar. Perfect timing during lockdowns. New areas like the Frosty Slopes and hidden villages brimmed with Galarian variants, from Slowpoke to Farfetch'd, and the story delved into folklore with Peony's expedition vibes. These expansions weren't cheap at $30 for the pass, but they delivered, adding hours of content and finally including more National Dex mons via transfers. It was Pokémon's entry into live service territory, with post-launch events keeping servers alive. Fans who skipped the base game even bought in just for the DLC, proving the model's potential. Diving deeper, let's talk about how Dynamax reshaped battles. In the stadiums, you'd enter these colossal arenas, the crowds roar building tension as your Pokémon swelled to building size. Moves like Max Flare spread fire across the field, or Max Phantasm boosted Ghost type's evasion. It added layers to strategy, especially in online ranked matches. Galar's gyms amplified this. Bee's fighting dojo with martial arts flair, or Pier's dark concert hall pulsing with rock beats. The region's lore wove in real-world nods, like the slumbering Weald's misty ancient ruins echoing British legends, or the energy plant in Motostoke, drawing from Industrial Revolution grit. But Dexit's ripple effects went beyond complaints. It sparked creator spotlights, with YouTubers like Adrive hosting Dex completion challenges using glitches or mods, while others analysed Game Freak's tech constraints, rendering 900 plus models in full 3D on Switch hardware was no small feat. The backlash even influenced future designs, pushing for better integration. Emotionally, it hit home for collectors who'd invested years in their boxes. One fan story that went viral was a player sharing their binder of cards and figurines, tearfully explaining why missing Pokémon felt personal. Yet positives emerged too. Newcomers found Galar welcoming, with the free demo of Sword and Shield letting you try Dynamax early, hooking millions. Expanding on the DLC's impact, the Isle of Armor introduced the ability to expand your PC boxes dynamically, a quality of life win that eased Dexit frustrations. Kubfu's evolution into Urshifu required choosing between single strike or rapid strike styles. mirroring real martial arts paths and adding replayability. In the Crown Tundra, the legendary clue system had you solving riddles with Peony's daughter, uncovering Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres in noble forms, shadowy, regal variants that flew through blizzards. These areas felt alive, with weather affecting spawns and hidden bosses lurking in caves. Paid DLC was a gamble, but it paid off, boosting sales and setting precedent for Scarlet and Violet's expansions. You could feel the series maturing, blending single-player epics with multiplayer hooks, all while addressing community feedback. The drama around Dexit ultimately strengthened the fandom's voice, leading to more developer AMAs and transparency. By late 2020, with over 400 Pokémon now accessible via DLC, the divide softened, though debates persist on forums about true completeness. What made Sword and Shield endure despite the controversy was its heart, the journey from sleepy Postwick to champion glory, with Hop as your ever-enthusiastic rival, evolving from annoyance to ally. Side quests like cooking curry for Pokémon to reveal hidden stats added charm, and the post-game World of Wonders project let you research Gala's secrets. Dynamax dens became social hubs, with SOS chains evolving into group raids. For competitive scenes, VGC tournaments adapted Dynamax rules, crowning strategies that balanced size with speed. Gala's music, from orchestral gym themes to folk-inspired wild area tunes, pulled you in deeper. Even critics admitted the region's biodiversity shone, with Pokémon like the mischievous Impidimp or majestic Centiskorch fitting seamlessly. The Dexit saga taught lessons on fan expectations. Game Freak promised no cuts in future gens, a vow that rebuilt trust. As expansions wrapped, Sword and Shield stood as a pivotal chapter, blending spectacle with substance, stadium roars echoing the franchise's roar back to life. But just when you thought the Switch era was settling, Game Freak was already plotting a radical shift toward uncharted territories. Up next in Chapter 11, Legends, Arceus, and Open World Dawn, where Pokémon breaks free from linear paths into a vast, breathing world that redefines everything you know. Get ready to explore like never before. Legends, Arceus, and Open World Dawn. In 2021, Pokémon returned to its Sinnoh roots with a pair of remakes that promised to capture the magic of the original Diamond and Pearl games, but through a fresh lens that fans had been clamoring for years. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl arrived on the Nintendo Switch, staying true to the classic story and structure, while introducing visual tweaks that sparked endless debates. You know how those early generation R4 titles felt like a cozy journey through a vast, snowy region? These remakes doubled down on that nostalgia, but with a chibi art style that turned your Pokémon and characters into adorable, super deformed versions of themselves. Imagine trudging through the crisp Mount Coronet peaks, your team rendered in these pint-sized, expressive sprites that made every battle feel like a heartfelt reunion. It was Game Freak's way of honouring the past without reinventing the wheel entirely, and for many players, that fidelity was exactly what they wanted after the experimental twists of Sword and Shield. But let's dive deeper into what made these remakes stand out. The core gameplay loop stayed linear, guiding you from Twinleaf Town to the Elite Four with all the familiar gym leaders, rival encounters, and that epic showdown with Cynthia. Yet they weren't just carbon copies. The chibi aesthetic wasn't some gimmick. It breathed new life into the overworld, making exploration feel whimsical and approachable. Your character waddles along paths with these big-headed proportions, and watching Pikachu or Turtwig scamper beside you in that style, it hits right in the feels, evoking the Game Boy Advance era's charm, but polished for modern screens. And then there's the Grand Underground, that hidden gem from the originals, expanded into something truly obsessive. Remember digging for fossils and rare stones in the DS versions? Here, it's a sprawling subterranean network where you can build secret bases, trade with friends online, and uncover treasures that tie directly into your adventure above ground. I mean, you could spend hours chipping away at walls for shiny items or battling wild Pokémon in distorted dimensions, all while customizing your hideout with furniture that screams personal flair. It turned what was once a side activity into a full-blown reason to boot up the game after the main story. Fans loved how these remakes preserved Sinnoh's deliberate pacing, that sense of discovery in a region inspired by Japan's Hokkaido with its blizzards and lakes. No rushed open-world chaos here. Instead, you earn your progress, biking across routes that feel earned. The contests return too, letting you dress up your Pokémon and perform in Jubilife City's theatre for ribbons and fame. And the post-game? It connected seamlessly to Pokémon Home, pulling in your collection from other titles for that ultimate completionist rush. But not everything was perfect. Some criticised the chibi visuals for feeling too cutesy compared to the more realistic proportions in later games, and the lack of major innovations left a few wondering if this was just a safe bet after the Dexit backlash. Still, sales soared over 15 million copies combined, proving that sometimes going back to basics resonates louder than bold experiments. You could feel the developers' respect for the source material in every pixel, every dialogue line that echoed the 2006 originals. As the Switch era pushed boundaries, 2022 brought something entirely different. A game that didn't just remake the past but reimagined Pokémon's future. Legends. Arceus dropped like a meteor, setting players in the ancient Hisui region, which you'd recognise as an untamed version of Sinnoh from 1,000 years ago. This wasn't your standard Pokémon fare. It was a bold pivot to a semi-open world structure that let you roam vast, seamless landscapes without the invisible walls of traditional routes. Picture this: you're a member of the Galaxy team, tasked with cataloguing every Pokémon in Hisui to complete the first ever Pokédex. No hand-holding tutorials drag you along. Instead, freedom reigns as you climb jagged cliffs, ford rivers, and sneak through misty forests teeming with wildlife. The world feels alive with dynamic weather, shifting from sunny meadows to raging storms that alter Pokémon behaviours on the fly. It's that unpredictability that hooks you. Will a Bidoof evolve mid-chase, or will a noble like Hisuian Gudra ambush your survey team? At the heart of Legends, Arceus were the real-time catching mechanics, a mechanic so intuitive it changed how we think about Pokémon capture forever. Forget the old throw a ball and pray routine after weakening foes in turn-based battles. Here, you hurl Pokéballs from afar, using stealth and timing to sneak up on wild creatures grazing or sleeping. Throw some bait like berries to distract them, or chuck a stone to agitate and draw them out. It's all about observation, like being a true Pokémon researcher in the field. Success feels earned, not scripted, and the risk-reward amps up the thrill. Get spotted, and you're in a fast-paced skirmish where commands execute in real time. Dodge attacks with agile leaps, position for quick strikes, or swap Pokémon mid-fight. No more menu diving pauses. It's fluid, almost action RPG in vibe, drawing inspiration from games like Monster Hunter, but tailored for Pokémon's charm. Completing tasks for the Pokédex, catching from different angles in various forms or at specific times, turns every encounter into a mini puzzle, rewarding curiosity over grinding. What made this shift from linear paths to this newfound freedom so redefining? Traditional Pokémon games funneled you through a set narrative corridor, but Legends Arceus opened the gates, letting you tackle story missions, side quests, or pure exploration at your pace. Want to scale the heights of Mount Coronet before facing the first gym equivalent? Go for it. The clans of Hisui, Diamond, Pearl, and Noble each guard massive areas packed with biomes, from crimson bogs to obsidian fields, where alpha Pokémon lurk as oversized bosses demanding strategy. You build your team organically, no starter choice at the outset. Arceus itself crashes the party early, gifting you Rowlet, Cyndaquil, or Oshawott in their Hisuian forms. And the lore? It's rich, weaving myths of space-time rifts, and the origins of Sinnoh's legends, with Dialga and Palkia reimagined as primal forces. Voice acting brought the Galaxy Hall to life, with characters like Professor Laventon guiding your surveys and Commander Kamado pushing the plot's tensions. It felt like stepping into a historical epic, where your actions as the Survey Corps hero ripple through time. Of course, this dawn of open-world Pokémon wasn't without its stumbles. Performance issues hit hard from launch, frame rate dips in dense areas, pop-in textures during fast travel on your magical Basculegion mount, and clipping glitches that pulled you out of the immersion. Critics and players alike pointed out the jank, Pokémon spawning in walls or battles stuttering during intense real-time dodges. It fueled early backlash, with some calling it unpolished for a mainline title, especially after Sword and Shield's similar woes. Game Freak faced heat for rushing releases, but patches rolled out steadily, smoothing edges and adding features like massive mass outbreaks for group hunts. Despite the critiques, the game's impact was undeniable. It sold over 15 million copies in its first year, proving players craved this evolution. Suddenly, Pokémon wasn't just about collecting, it was about surviving and thriving in a wild, reactive world. You felt the weight of being an outsider in Hisui, forging bonds with Pokémon through shared adventures rather than rote commands. Let's talk about how these innovations rippled outward. The real-time elements influenced not just catching, but battling too, blending turn-based strategy with action timing that made every encounter pulse with energy. Stealth mechanics encouraged learning behaviors, like how Shinx hunt in packs at dusk, forcing you to adapt rather than overpower. And the progression system? No levels grinding in isolation. Your Pokémon grow through usage in the wild, tying strength to exploration. It redefined what a Pokémon game could be, bridging the gap between core RPGs and the free-form joy of spin-offs, like Pokémon Snap. Fan theories exploded online. Was this a precursor to full-action controls in future titles? How would Hisuian forms, like the ghostly Zoroark or Poison Typhlosion, integrate into the national decks? The Daybreak update later added multiplayer raids, letting you team up against alphas for rare drops, extending the life's blood of the game. You might wonder, did Legends, Arceus redeem the Switch era after controversies like Dexit? Absolutely, in many ways. It showed Game Freak experimenting without abandoning roots. Turn-based battles still anchor major story fights, and the Pokédex completion offers that satisfying 100% closure. For newcomers, it's an accessible entry, teaching basics through immersive tasks. Veterans appreciated the fresh take on familiar lore, uncovering how modern Sinnoh evolved from Hisui's chaos. Emotional beats hit hard too, moments like calming rampaging nobles or witnessing space-time distortions swallow landscapes leave you in awe, pondering Pokémon's deeper mythology. It's a game that lingers, urging replays for missed secrets in the hidden groves or lunar events. As we trace this open-world dawn, it's clear Legends. Arceus lit the fuse for Pokémon's boldest era yet, trading scripted paths for emergent stories you craft yourself. But the real revolution was just warming up. Up next, in Scarlet, Violet, and the Paldea Frontier, you'll see how this semi-open blueprint explodes into a fully unbound adventure, complete with paradoxes, terrestrialization, and a region that challenges everything you thought possible. Stick around, because what happens in Paldea will leave you questioning the fabric of the Pokémon universe itself. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. Scarlet, Violet, and the Paldea Frontier. In 2022, Pokémon shattered expectations by launching straight into a fully open world with Scarlet and Violet, the 9th generation that redefined how we explore and battle in this beloved universe. You step into the sun-drenched region of Paldea, a sprawling landscape inspired by the vibrant cultures and terrains of Spain and the Iberian Peninsula, where ancient ruins whisper secrets and modern cities buzz with energy. From the moment you boot up the game, there's no linear path forcing your hand. Instead, you're free to roam hillsides dotted with wild Pokémon, dive into hidden caves, or scale mountains that offer breathtaking views of the horizon. This isn't just a tweak to the formula, it's a complete overhaul, making every corner feel alive and full of discovery. Freedom. You're riding your mountable Pokémon across open fields, the wind in your face as you spot a rare creature in the distance. No loading screens interrupt your journey. The world unfolds seamlessly, blending urban hubs like the bustling port city of Porto Marinada with rural farmlands and misty highlands. Paldea's design draws from real-world diversity, incorporating Mediterranean vibes in its architecture, flamenco-inspired festivals, and even tapas-style food stalls where you can heal your team. But what truly sets Scarlet and Violet apart is the terrestrial phenomenon, a dazzling battle mechanic that lets Pokémon crystallize into a Tera type, shifting their elemental affinities mid-fight for strategic twists you won't see coming. Imagine your trusty starter, say Sprigatito, evolving into Meowscarada, suddenly terrestrializing into a fiery red crystal form to counter an opponent's water attack. It's visually stunning, with shards of light exploding across the screen, and it adds layers of depth to every encounter. The game's 3 story paths are where this open-world ambition really shines, giving you the power to choose your adventure in ways previous generations only dreamed of. First, there's Victory Road, the classic gym challenge that takes you through Paldea's 8 gyms, each led by a type specialist leader with their own quirky personality and environmental flair. Think battling on a sandy beach against water types or in a snowy peak facing ice masters. It's familiar territory, but woven into the open map so you can tackle them whenever you're ready. Then comes Starfall Street, a rogues gallery of Team Star bases where you confront delinquent gangs obsessed with specific Pokémon types. These aren't just fights, they're infiltration missions, complete with stealth elements and heartfelt backstories about the characters' struggles, turning what could be simple boss battles into emotional narratives. And don't overlook the Path of Legends, a quest to hunt down Titan Pokémon, massive folklore-inspired beasts that roam the wilds. You track them through clues from locals, culminating in epic showdowns that feel like myths come to life, rewarding you with abilities to traverse the terrain even more freely. What makes this structure so addictive is how the paths intertwine without railroading you. You might start with a gym badge, detour to smash a Titan's boulder blocking a cave, then pivot to dismantling a star base because a wild encounter sparked your interest. It's empowering. You're not just a trainer, you're an explorer charting your own legend. The story ties into the academy life at Naranja or Uva Academy, where you play a transfer student unraveling mysteries about the region's history, including the enigmatic paradox Pokémon. These are ancient or futuristic variants of classic species, like a roaring great tusk resembling a prehistoric Donphan or Iron Valiant, a sleek robotic Gardevoir from another timeline. Scarlet leans into the past with more ancient paradoxes, while Violet pulls from the future, creating subtle differences that encourage replays. And let's talk about the Pokémon themselves. Over 400 debut in Paldea, including fan favourites like the ghostly Mimikyu evolutions and the adorable Tinker line, a hammer-wielding fairy that grows into a full-on blacksmith powerhouse. But Pokémon has always evolved beyond the base games, and Scarlet and Violet were no exception, especially with the DLC expansions that arrived in 2023. The Teal Mask takes you to Kitakami, a remote, folklore-rich land reminiscent of rural Japan, where cherry blossoms frame misty mountains and festivals honour mythical creatures. Here, you dive into the loyal three, Okidogi, Munkidori, and Fezandipiti, legendary Pokémon tied to ancient tales of heroism and betrayal. The story unfolds during a school trip, blending light-hearted ogre legends with deeper lore about Kitakami's hidden history, introducing Ogapon, a masked grass type with transformable forms that shift based on the masks it wears. It's a breath of fresh air, adding new Area Zero explorations and battles that feel intimate and story-driven, while expanding the overarching narrative with ties back to Paldea's paradoxes. Following that, the Indigo Disc plunges you into the underwater wonders of Blueberry Academy, a high-tech school in the Unova region. Yes, a return to Gen V's stomping grounds. This isn't just a side trip, it's a full epilogue to the base game, where you join the BB League as an exchange student, tackling elite 4-style challenges against top-tier trainers. The Academy's massive terrarium simulates diverse biomes, from volcanic craters to frozen tundras, packed with returning legendaries and mythicals you can catch and befriend. Picture surfing on wave-riding Pokémon, through coral reefs or aerial battles atop Lapras in simulated skies, it's a playground for experimentation. The DLC weaves in more about the world's lore, connecting Paldea's anomalies to broader multiverse hints, and introduces Terrapagos, a turtle-like mythical whose crystal shell powers the entire Tierra mechanic. Together, these expansions don't just add content, they enrich the universe, making you feel like Paldea's story is part of something vast and interconnected. Fast forward to 2024, and the Mochi Mayhem epilogue wraps up the saga with a deliciously dark twist on ancient myths. Returning to Kitakami for a festival, you uncover the truth behind the Loyal Three. They weren't heroes at all, but poisoned Mochi from Pecharunt, a mischievous mythical Pokémon known as the Scoundrel, twisted their loyalties centuries ago. This Pecha Berry-inspired creature, with its toxic Mochi that induces obedience, adds a sinister edge to the folklore, revealing how myths can hide uncomfortable truths. Catching Pecharunt feels like unearthing a buried secret, and it ties beautifully into the themes of deception and redemption that echo through Scarlet and Violet's narratives. The epilogue is short but punchy, serving as a narrative cherry on top that leaves you pondering the darker sides of Pokémon society. Throughout all this, Scarlet and Violet pushed boundaries in performance and accessibility. Sure, there were launch hiccups. Glitches in the open world had players clipping through textures or battling invisible foes, but patches smoothed things out, proving Game Freak's commitment to iteration. The multiplayer shines too. Co-op raids let you team up with friends for massive terror raids, sharing treasures and strategies in real time. And the music, composer Toby Fox of Undertale fame lent his talents to key tracks, blending orchestral swells with electronic beats that capture Paldea's eclectic spirit. From the triumphant gym themes to the haunting paradox encounters, the soundtrack pulls you deeper into the immersion. You know, playing through these games, you can't help but feel the evolution of Pokémon right in your hands. The open world isn't just bigger, it's smarter, encouraging curiosity over checklists. Take the sandwich making mechanic, for instance. Craft picnics with ingredients to boost shiny encounter rates or spark rare spawns. It's a small touch, but it turns foraging into a rewarding loop, making every outing feel purposeful. Or consider the auto battle feature for weaker foes, freeing you to focus on the thrill of the hunt rather than grinding. These innovations show how Scarlet and Violet are bridging old-school charm with modern design, appealing to veterans and newcomers alike. Delving deeper into Paldea's lore, the region grapples with themes of inheritance and change. Your rival, Nemona, is a battle-obsessed powerhouse whose family legacy mirrors the Academy's prestige, while Arven's Path of Legends arc tugs at heartstrings with his quest for his father's lost recipe, revealing bonds between humans and Pokémon that go beyond training. Then there's Penny, the quiet hacker behind Team Star, whose story of isolation and found family adds emotional weight to the Starfall path. These characters aren't side notes. They're the soul of the experience, making choices matter in subtle, replayable ways. The Elite Four and champion Geeta cap it off with battles that test every strategy you've built. Her Glimora terrestrializing into a rock-hard nightmare that demands perfect type coverage. The DLCs amplify this character focus. In the Teal Mask, you befriend Carmine and Kieran, siblings with their own family dramas tied to Kitakami's festivals, uncovering how legends shape communities. The Indigo Disc brings back Gen 9 gym leaders as guest students, like Iono's streaming antics or Larry's deadpan salaryman vibe, creating hilarious interactions in the Academy Lounge. It's these personal stories that make the expansions feel essential, not optional. Each one peels back layers of the Pokémon world you thought you knew. As we wrap up this chapter on Scarlet, Violet, and the Paldea Frontier, it's clear this generation marked a bold pivot toward boundless exploration. But even with all these triumphs, questions linger about what comes next in this open era. Up next, we'll dive into the ongoing debates shaping Pokémon's future, from performance woes to the ethics of its ever-expanding universe. You won't want to miss how these controversies are forcing the franchise to evolve in unexpected ways. Ongoing debates in the open era. When Scarlet and Violet launched in late 2022, they promised to shatter the mold of Pokémon's traditional gameplay. But what players got was a game that felt like it was still in beta testing. Picture this. You're exploring the vast Paldea region, only to clip through the floor or watch your character slide across the screen like they're on ice skates. The glitches were everywhere, from Pokémon popping out of nowhere to battles freezing mid-action. It was a rocky start that had fans questioning if Game Freak could handle the leap to full open-world freedom. Yet, amid all that chaos, these games introduced features so fresh and exciting that they redefined what Pokémon could be. Take the multiplayer co-op raids, for instance. Suddenly you could team up with up to 3 friends in real time, diving into massive terror raid battles against oversized, glowing Pokémon. It's not just about grinding levels anymore, it's about shared triumphs, coordinating attacks, and celebrating victories together. That contrast hit hard, bugs frustrating your solo adventures, while these co-op moments made you feel like part of a global community, pushing back against the isolation of earlier generations. You might remember the backlash online. forums lit up with memes and rants about performance issues on the Nintendo Switch hardware that suddenly seemed woefully underpowered. Developers promised patches and they delivered over time, smoothing out some edges, but the debate lingers. Was this a bold evolution or a rushed product? What makes it fascinating is how Scarlet and Violet didn't just stumble into open-world territory, they charged in with ideas that echoed the freedom of games, like Breath of the Wild. No more loading screens between routes, the entire map unfolds seamlessly before you. You can scale mountains, swim across rivers, or glide through the skies without interruption, discovering hidden treasures or wild encounters at every turn. It's liberating, isn't it? That sense of endless possibility, where a simple walk can lead to battling a legendary or befriending a rare shiny. But here's where the ongoing debates really heat up. Does this openness dilute the structured charm that made Pokémon addictive for decades? Some fans argue it does, saying the lack of linear progression makes story beats feel scattered, like you're piecing together a puzzle without the edges. Others praise it as a natural progression, arguing that Pokémon has always been about discovery, and now it's just on a grander scale. Diving deeper into those innovative features, the Terra Raids weren't a one-off gimmick. They became the backbone of endgame content, with weekly events pulling in millions of players worldwide. Imagine logging in to find a 7-star raid boss, its body shimmering with anomalous energy, and knowing you need a diverse team to counter its type-shifting powers. These raids introduced terastallization, a mechanic where Pokémon crystallize and change types mid-battle, adding layers of strategy that reward experimentation. You could turn your trusty water type into a fire powerhouse to exploit weaknesses, creating those aha moments that keep you coming back. And the multiplayer aspect. It transformed raids from solo slogs into social events. Friends from across the globe join via the internet, chatting in real time as you dodge attacks and unleash combos. It's Pokémon's answer to the cooperative multiplayer boom in gaming, proving that even in a franchise rooted in personal journeys, connection matters. But not everyone's convinced. Critics point out that while the co-op shines, the core single-player experience still suffers from pop-in textures and frame rate dips, especially in densely populated areas like the school hub of Messagoza. Is the innovation worth the growing pains? That's the debate raging in fan circles today, with petitions for better optimization and think pieces questioning if Pokémon's annual release cycle is sustainable. Shifting gears to the business side, Scarlet and Violet's emphasis on seamless maps and live service elements signals a profound shift in how Pokémon operates as a franchise. Think about it. These aren't isolated games anymore. They're living worlds designed for ongoing engagement. The Hidden Treasure of Area Zero DLC, released in 2 parts starting in 2023, expanded Paldea with new areas like the enigmatic Great Crater of Paldea, introducing over 230 returning Pokémon and fresh storylines involving ancient paradox forms, creatures that look like futuristic or prehistoric twists on classics. You explore biomes that blend seamlessly with the base game, from thorny Kitakami Highlands to the aquatic depths of Blueberry Academy. No restarting from scratch, your save file carries over, making it feel like a continuous adventure. This live service approach, with regular updates, mystery gifts, and event-driven content, mirrors successful models like Fortnite or Destiny. Pokémon Company is betting big on retention over one-and-done purchases. Subscriptions through Pokémon Home integrate your collections across titles, while the in-game Pokédex encourages completionists to keep playing. It's smart business. DLC sales soared, pulling in revenue that rivals the base game's launch. But does it change Pokémon's soul? purists worry that this endless content drip turns a series into a service, rather than a complete experience, potentially overwhelming casual players who just want a finite story. You have to wonder, is this the future, where your Paldea journey never truly ends, or does it risk burnout in a market flooded with always online demands? Those seamless maps deserve a closer look because they're at the heart of the open era revolution. In previous games, regions were divided into neat, gated areas. Route 1 led to Viridian City, and that was that. Scarlet and Violet erased those barriers entirely. From the moment you step off the school podium, the world is yours. A sprawling landscape of arid deserts, misty highlands, and coastal cliffs, all interconnected without a single load time. You can spot a distant Pokémon and chase it across terrains. Your rideable Koraidon, or Miraidon bounding over obstacles. It's exhilarating, evoking that childlike wonder of exploration, but it also amplifies the debates on polish. Early reviews slam the technical hiccups, NPCs teleporting, grass clipping through models, but patches have improved traversal, making those maps feel alive with dynamic weather and day-night cycles that affect encounters. Imagine sunset casting long shadows over ancient ruins, revealing glowing treasures only visible at dusk. This design philosophy hints at Pokemon's evolving model, less about rigid progression, more about emergent gameplay. Raids pop up organically on the map, inviting you to join or host, fostering a community-driven ecosystem. And the business implications: seamless integration means easier monetization through micro-events like limited-time raids with exclusive rewards, keeping the game relevant years after launch. Now let's talk about how this open era extends beyond the Switch into crossovers that blend physical and digital worlds in ways Pokémon has never done before. Crossovers with Pokémon Go have become a cornerstone, integrating AR events that pull you out of your screen and into the real world. Remember the Scarlet and Violet Go tie-ins? They launched with migration features, allowing Paldea Pokémon to appear in Go raids, but it went further with AR-enhanced events. You could participate in global challenges where scanning real-world locations with your phone unlocked in-game bonuses, like special research quests that mirrored the open-world exploration. Picture this. You're walking through a park, AR overlay showing wild Lechonk scampering around benches and completing the catch sinks with your Scarlet save for bonus items. It's a brilliant fusion Go's location-based gameplay, feeding into the console title's live service backbone. Events like the Paldea Adventure brought terrestrial debuts to mobile, where you battle crystallized forms in augmented reality, blending the thrill of outdoor hunts with strategic depth. This isn't just marketing, it's a unified ecosystem. Pokémon Home acts as the bridge, transferring catches between apps and games, creating a meta collection that spans devices. Fans debate if it fragments the experience. Do you need 3 apps to play fully? But the blending creates magic. Imagine coordinating a family raid, kids on Switch co-oping, while parents hunt in Go, all contributing to shared progress. It's Pokémon's push toward a transmedia empire, where digital boundaries dissolve, hinting at a business model that's as expansive as the maps themselves. These debates aren't abstract, they're shaping fan expectations and the franchise's direction. Take the performance issues. Scarlet and Violet sold over 24 million copies despite the bugs, proving innovation trumps perfection in the short term. But long term, voices like speedrunners highlight how glitches enable exploits, turning debates into community-driven fixes via mods on PC. Emulators. On the flip side, the co-op raids have spawned esports potential, with organised tournaments drawing crowds. And the live service elements? They've normalised DLC as standard, with the Teal Mask introducing the Loyal 3 Legendaries and Blueberry Academy's Union Circle for trading rare items. You log in monthly for battle passes disguised as stamp rallies, earning points for cosmetics or held items. It's addictive, but raises questions. Will free-to-play elements creep in or stay premium? Crossovers amplify this, with Geo's AR events tying into console updates, like the 2023 Pokémon Day celebration, where real-world parades unlocked in-game parades of Pokémon. Blending worlds like this fosters loyalty, but purists argue it dilutes the core RPG essence, turning Pokémon into a lifestyle brand. As we unpack these layers, it's clear the open era is Pokémon's most divisive yet. Seamless maps invite endless replayability, co-op raids build bonds, and live service keeps the fire burning, all while Go crossovers make every step in reality count. Yet the bugs and business shifts spark endless discussions. Is this growth or greed, evolution or overreach? You've journeyed through the history with me, from pixelated starters to these boundless horizons, and the debates remind us why Pokémon endures. It's personal, it's communal, it's always changing. But hold on, because the conversation doesn't stop here. Up next, we'll dive into Legends, Z-Day, and the Mega Return, where Lumia City gets a futuristic makeover and battles flip the script on everything you know. Trust me, the evolutions waiting there will leave you questioning what's next for Pokémon's powerhouse mechanics. Legends, Z-A, and the Mega Return. What if I told you that after the sprawling open worlds of Scarlet and Violet, Pokémon is about to take us back to a city reborn, where battles aren't just turns on a grid, but fluid clashes in real time? That's the bold promise of Pokémon Legends. Z-A, the next big chapter in the franchise's evolution, slated for release in 2025. Announced during a surprise Pokémon Presents showcase, this game isn't just another entry. It's a love letter to one of the most elegant regions in Pokémon history, Kalos, and a revival of mechanics that once shook up the meta like nothing before. Let's dive right into what makes Legends Z-A so intriguing. Set in Lumio City, the glittering heart of Kalos from Pokémon X and Y, the game throws you into a redevelopment era that's equal parts futuristic dream and nostalgic callback. Picture this: the once pristine streets, inspired by Paris with its towering prism tower and chic boulevards, now scarred by some undefined calamity. Your role? Helping to rebuild it all, brick by boulevard, through quests that blend urban planning with Pokémon training. It's not just about catching them all anymore. It's about shaping a living, breathing metropolis where every choice you make alters the skyline. Developers at Game Freak have hinted that this urban renewal theme will tie directly into the core gameplay loop, letting you influence construction projects, ally with locals, and even customize districts based on your team's strengths. Imagine directing a group of Machoke to hoist steel beams, or using a water type's moves to irrigate new parks. It's Pokémon meets City Builder, but with that signature monster collecting heart. And speaking of hearts, the story here promises to dig deeper into Kalos lore than ever before. Remember the ancient war in X and Y with its themes of beauty, destruction, and the ultimate weapon? Legends. Z-A is positioned as a prequel of sorts, exploring the roots of that conflict through character-driven narratives that feel more intimate and personal. You'll follow a protagonist who's not just a trainer, but a key figure in the city's revival, forging bonds with a diverse cast of residents, from eccentric inventors tinkering in hidden ateliers to street artists channeling their Pokémon's creativity into murals. These aren't side characters, they're the pulse of the story, each with backstories woven into the fabric of Carlos's history. Game Freak has teased emotional arcs that question what it means to rebuild after loss, drawing parallels to real-world resilience. How will your decisions affect alliances, uncover hidden legends about Mega Evolution's origins, or even reveal forgotten Pokémon forms tied to the region's past? Is the kind of depth that could make this the most narrative-rich Pokémon game since Black and White, where every dialogue choice feels like it matters. But let's talk about the elephant, or should I say, the Mega Lucario in the room, the return of Mega Evolutions. If you're a veteran trainer, you know how revolutionary they were when they debuted in X and Y back in 2013. Suddenly, your Charizard wasn't just evolving once, it could burst into a fiery, winged behemoth mid-battle, stats skyrocketing and abilities twisting in ways that demanded new strategies. Mega Evolutions added flair, spectacle, and that rush of power, but they faded after Generation X, overshadowed by Z moves and Dynamax. Now they're roaring back in Legends Saga, integrated seamlessly into the gameplay. And here's the kicker. Battles shift from the classic turn-based system to real-time action. No more waiting for your opponent's move. You'll dodge attacks on the fly, chain combos with precise timing, and trigger Mega Evolutions during heated exchanges to turn the tide. It's like Pokémon crossed with something out of Monster Hunter or even the fluid combat of Xenoblade Chronicles, but tailored for quick, accessible skirmishes. Think about how this changes everything. In real-time battles, positioning matters more than ever. Flanking enemies with faster Pokémon, or using terrain like Lumios's rooftops for aerial advantages. Mega Evolutions won't just be power-ups. They'll alter movesets dynamically, perhaps allowing a Mega Venusaur to summon vine barriers in real time, or a Mega Garchomp to dash through foes like a sandstorm bullet. Game Freak has confirmed that over 40 Mega forms from past games will return, including fan favourites like Mega Mewtwo and Mega Altaria, but with tweaks to fit the new combat style. You'll need to master timing your Mega Stones, syncing them with environmental hazards in the city, like electrified puddles from a storm or reflective surfaces that amplify light-based attacks. For newcomers, it might sound intimidating, but tutorials built into the story will ease you in, starting with simple chases through alleyways before escalating to epic showdowns atop rebuilding scaffolds. You might be wondering, does this real-time shift mean the end of strategic depth? Absolutely not. While the action is fluid, core elements like type matchups, team synergy, and even held items carry over, ensuring that building your squad still requires thought. Competitive players will love how it opens up new metas. Imagine online arenas where Mega Evolutions create split-second mind games. And for single-player fans, it amplifies the thrill of exploration. Wandering Lumios's evolving districts, you'll stumble into dynamic encounters where battles erupt organically, like a wild Pokémon defending its turf amid construction noise. Kalos lore gets a fresh coat of paint too, with Legends CA expanding on the region's fairy tale vibes. We'll revisit icons like the Kalos Queen, the legendary Pokémon Xerneas and Yveltal, and perhaps even dive into the Flabébé line's floral mysteries in a redeveloped ecosystem. The story's character focus shines through in how it humanizes the trainers. Your rivals might be former residents displaced by the calamity, now seeking purpose in the rebuild. One teaser trailer showed a young inventor bonding with a Klefki over lost keys symbolizing forgotten histories, hinting at side quests that peel back layers of Kalos's elegant yet haunted past. It's promising narratives that resonate emotionally, making you invest in the world's recovery as much as your own journey. Have you ever felt that pang when a favourite region gets revisited, only to see it transformed? That's the magic here. nostalgia mixed with innovation, urging you to rediscover Kalos through fresh eyes. Of course, no modern Pokémon launch would be complete without post-game support, and Legends ZA is gearing up for that in a big way. Planned DLC is already on the horizon, set to expand the story and world after launch, adding new districts to Lumiose, deeper lore dives, and possibly even more mega evolutions tailored for the real-time system. This isn't just filler, it's a signal of sustained support from Game Freak and the Pokémon Company, especially as we transition to next-gen hardware like the anticipated Switch successor. Amid rumours of a new console reveal, these expansions could bridge the gap, keeping players engaged with seasonal events, new biomes, bleeding into the city, and crossovers with Pokémon Home for transferring your favourites. Imagine DLC chapters where you tackle outskirts of Kalos, uncovering ruins that tie back to the urban core, or multiplayer modes for co-op rebuilding projects. It's a smart move, addressing past criticisms of short campaigns by committing to a living game that evolves with its community. As we edge closer to 2025, the hype around Legends ZA is building like a mega evolution cresting. October 16th marks the release date, giving fans plenty of time to speculate on trailers and betas. Will real-time battles finally modernise Pokémon's combat without alienating purists? Can the urban renewal theme deliver a story as captivating as the region's aesthetic? Early leaks suggest yes, with voice acting that brings characters to life, and a soundtrack blending orchestral Kalos elegance with pulsing city beats. For me, it's exciting to see Mega Evolutions return not as a gimmick but as a cornerstone, reminding us why we fell in love with these transformations in the first place. The sheer spectacle of a Pokémon pushing beyond its limits. But what really gets me is how Legends ZA fits into the bigger picture. After the open-world freedom of Scarlet and Violet and the semi-exploration of Arceus, this feels like a refined pivot. A focused, story-rich experience in a contained yet expansive urban playground. It's Pokémon saying, "We've listened, we're blending action, narrative, and legacy in ways that honour the past while charging forward." If X and Y introduced us to 3D wonders and Mega Flare, ZA could redefine them for a new era, making Lumiose not just a setting but a character in its own right. You know, as someone who's followed this franchise from those pixelated Game Boy days, moments like this reignite the spark, the promise of deeper characters navigating urban renewal, unravelling Kalos secrets. It's the kind of evolution that keeps the series fresh. And with DLC on deck to extend the adventure amid hardware shifts, it's clear Pokémon isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. That brings us to even wilder horizons ahead. Up next, in Pokopia and Champions New Horizons, you'll discover a game where you play as a transformed Ditto in a life sim sandbox, like nothing Pokémon has tried before, plus a strategy title that remixes battles across platforms. Get ready for ideas that will blow your mind and redefine how we play. Pokopia and Champions New Horizons. As we push into 2026, the Pokémon franchise isn't just evolving, it's reinventing itself in ways that could redefine how you experience the world of Pocket Monsters. Bold leap, Pokémon Pokopia arrives on March 5th, exclusively for the Nintendo Switch 2, thrusting you into a life sim sandbox, unlike anything the series has dared before. You're not a traditional trainer here. No, you step into the shoes of a Ditto that's somehow transformed into a human, carrying that shape-shifting essence deep within. What does that mean for gameplay? Everything. Your character can morph abilities on the fly, using Pokémon moves to reshape the environment around you, turning barren landscapes into thriving habitats, or crafting tools from raw resources. It's a sandbox where building isn't an afterthought. It's the heart of the adventure. Let me break this down for you, because when you hear the details, you'll see why this could be the game that hooks a whole new generation. The core loop revolves around resource gathering and farming, but infused with Pokemon's whimsical magic. Imagine waking up in a vast, procedurally generated world divided into multiple biomes, from lush forests teeming with bug types to arid deserts hiding rock Pokemon secrets. There's a full day-night cycle that affects everything. Pokemon behaviors shift with the sun's rise and fall, nocturnal creatures emerge under the stars, and your own energy levels dictate when you rest or push through. You start small, perhaps collecting berries to plant your first farm, but as you level up that ditto human form, you unlock moves like Vine Whip to till soil or Water Gun to irrigate fields. It's not just survival, it's creation. Build a cozy cabin with logs felled by a borrowed bulldoze, or construct elaborate bridges across rivers using rock slide to summon stones from the earth. But here's where it gets truly exciting and communal. Pokopia emphasizes co-op building in a shared world, letting you team up with friends online to collaborate on massive projects. Want to erect a towering Pokemon sanctuary that spans biomes? One player could handle the foundation with Earthquake, while another scouts for rare materials using Fly. It's seamless multiplayer without the usual frustrations. No loading screens interrupting your flow, just persistent worlds where your contributions linger even when you're offline. And the peculiar forms? Oh, these are the game's secret sauce. New Pokemon variants like Pikachu. A Pikachu evolved in high-altitude peaks with frost-tipped ears and ice-enhanced thunderbolts. Or Mosslax, a Salmont draped in verdant moss that blends into forest canopies for ambush tactics. These aren't random reskins, they're adaptive evolutions tied to the biomes you explore and build in. Discover a Mosslax in a humid jungle biome, and it might teach you moves that help cultivate rare plants for your farm. It's Pokemon meeting Animal Crossing's charm, with a dash of Minecraft's freedom, all while keeping that core sense of wonder alive. You might be wondering, how does this fit into Pokemon's legacy? Pokopia doesn't abandon the franchise's roots, it expands them. As your Ditto human, you still capture and befriend Pokemon, but now they're partners in your daily life, helping with chores or defending your builds from wild encounters. The transformation mechanic adds layers of strategy. Do you stay in human form for precise crafting, or shift to mimic a Pokemon's abilities for environmental puzzles? It's a fresh take that rewards creativity, and early leaks suggest dynamic weather systems could flood your farms or spark wildfires, forcing adaptive building on the fly. Distribution-wise, this isn't your standard cartridge drop. Pokopia introduces game key cards, physical cards with embedded download keys that you scan to unlock the game digitally. It's an innovative twist, blending collectible appeal with next-gen convenience, hinting at a future where physical media evolves into hybrid experiences. No more bulky discs, just a sleek card that feels like a TCG booster but grants you a whole world. Shifting gears now, because 2026 isn't stopping at sandbox dreams. Enter Pokémon Champions, a title that's blending the best of turn-based strategy with unprecedented accessibility, launching on both Nintendo Switch and mobile platforms. This isn't a side project, it's a battle-focused hybrid that pulls from the series' deepest wells of nostalgia while pushing boundaries. At its core, Champions revives the tactical depth of classic Pokémon battles, but layers in strategic elements that feel like a love letter to competitive play. You assemble teams not just for raw power, but for synergistic combos that unfold across grid-based arenas, where positioning matters as much as type matchups. What makes Champions stand out is how it supports those legacy mechanics you've grown to love. like Z moves from Generation 7, or even Dynamax from Sword and Shield, all woven into a unified system. Imagine calling on a Z move to unleash a cataclysmic black hole eclipse from Lunala. But now you have to maneuver your team on a tactical map to set up the perfect angle. It's turn-based at heart, with each round letting you command movements, attacks and supports. But the mobile access means you can jump into quick sessions during your commute, or dive deep into ranked matches at home. Cross-platform play ensures your progress syncs seamlessly via Pokémon Home, so that Charizard you've nurtured for years can step into the fray, Dynamaxing to tower over the battlefield. Let me paint a scenario to show you the thrill. You're facing off against a rival in a volcanic arena biome, echoing Pokopia's environmental flair, by the way. Your opponent deploys a heat-resistant Camerupt, but you counter with a strategic feint. Position your Greninja to flank from the shadows, then trigger a Z move Gigavolt Havoc that chains lightning across the grid, hitting multiple foes. Legacy moves aren't relics here, they're enhanced. Dynamax your own Pokémon to alter the terrain temporarily, creating craters that slow enemy advances or boosting allies with aura fields. And for mobile users, touch controls make it intuitive. Swipe to move, tap to target, while deeper strategy unfolds on Switch with Joy-Con precision. It's designed for accessibility without dumbing down the challenge, with tutorials that ease newcomers in but hidden depths for veterans like custom rule sets for tournaments. But Champions goes further, integrating social features that could transform how you connect with the community. Form guilds with friends to tackle co-op raids against legendary bosses, where coordinating Z moves in unison unleashes combo finishes. Or hop into global events tied to real-world Pokémon Day celebrations, battling for exclusive peculiar forms that cross over from Pokopia. Speaking of which, these two titles aren't isolated. Subtle links suggest shared universe elements, like peculiar forms appearing as rare encounters in Champions arenas. It's Game Freak teasing a connected ecosystem, where your Pokopia builds might influence champion battle stages down the line through updates. Now think about the implications for you as a fan. In a franchise that's always balanced innovation with tradition, Pokopia's Life Sim sandbox invites you to live alongside Pokémon, fostering that emotional bond in everyday moments, watching your farm Pokémon play at dusk or collaborating with friends on a dream village. It's therapeutic, almost meditative, yet packed with surprises like rare biome events where peculiar forms debut in the wild. Champions, on the other hand, scratches that competitive itch, making legacy mechanics feel vital again. Why bring back Z moves? Because they add that explosive flair to strategy, turning a standard battle into a spectacle. Mobile access democratizes it all. No console required to stay sharp. Diving deeper into Pokopia's mechanics, consider the transformation system. As a Ditto turned human, your base form is versatile but limited. You absorb essences from captured Pokémon to temporarily adopt their movesets. Befriend a Rowlet in the forest biome, and suddenly you're whipping vines to swing across chasms or photosynthesizing to heal during long building sessions. But there's risk overuse could lead to essence fatigue, forcing you to rest or seek out restorative items, adding realism to the sandbox. Co-op shines in these moments. A friend as a transformed Lucario could use Aura Sphere to light up caves for shared mining expeditions, uncovering ores for advanced crafts like Pokémon-powered machinery. The peculiar forms add collectible depth. Pikachu isn't just cute. Its icy sparks can freeze water sources into skatable paths, opening new building routes. Moslax, with its camouflage, becomes a stealthy scout, revealing hidden resources that solo players might miss. For distribution, Those game key cards are a game changer. Each pack could include variant art or even bonus digital items like starter seeds for your Pokopia farm. It's Switch 2 exclusive, so expect hardware synergy, perhaps using the new console's rumoured modular controllers for intuitive building gestures. Teasing next-gen possibilities, leaks hint at AR integrations where your physical card projects a holographic ditto onto your table via the Switch 2's camera. It's physical media reimagined, sustainable, and fan-friendly. Champions builds on this momentum with its hybrid design. Turn-based strategy means deliberate choices, but the battle hybrid introduces light real-time elements, like quick-time dodges for evading status effects, keeping mobile play snappy. Supporting Mega Evolution, alongside Z-moves and Dynamax, creates a mechanic melting pot. Picture a Mega Charizard X Dynamaxing mid-battle, its Z-move Infernal Roar scorching the grid in a blaze of glory. Mobile optimization includes offline modes for story campaigns, where you unravel a narrative about champion leagues across regions, tying into Pokemon's global lore. Connectivity with home means importing your Scarlet-Violet team feels effortless, evolving them with new forms exclusive to champions. You can feel the franchise's pulse quickening here, can't you? Pokopia lets you build dreams from the ground up, literally, while Champions reignites the fire of battle with tools from across generations. Together, they're signalling Pokemon's future. More player agency, deeper connections, and boundaries pushed without losing that spark of joy. But as we wrap up these horizons, you're probably itching to explore what keeps this empire standing tall through every twist and turn. Up next, in Chapter 16, The Endless Empire of Pokémon, we'll uncover the sprawling web of TCG, anime, mobile hits, and merch that turns a simple game into a cultural juggernaut. Prepare to be amazed at how it all interconnects. The Endless Empire of Pokémon. What if I told you that a single franchise, born from the simple idea of catching creatures in a digital world, has quietly built an empire worth over $100 billion? That's the reality of Pokémon today, a juggernaut that doesn't just dominate gaming, but reshapes entire industries around it. You've journeyed with me through the generations, from the pixelated adventures of Red and Green to the sprawling open worlds of Scarlet and Violet. But now, as we stand at the edge of this colossal legacy, it's time to see how Pokémon isn't just surviving. It's thriving, expanding, and embedding itself deeper into our culture than ever before. Let's dive into the pillars that hold this endless empire together. At the heart of it all are the mainline games, those generational releases that keep pulling you back year after year. Think about it, 9 generations strong, each one evolving the formula just enough to feel fresh while honouring what came before. From the Game Boy's humble beginnings to the Switch's portable power, these titles have sold hundreds of millions of copies worldwide. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet alone moved over 24 million units in their first year, proving that even with bugs and performance hiccups, the allure of exploration in a living, breathing Paldea region keeps players hooked. But it's not just about the sales numbers, it's the way these games create communities. You remember trading your first Charizard as a kid, right? That social glue has turned into global tournaments where trainers from Tokyo to Texas battle it out for glory. The competitive scene, with its ranked battles and VGC championships, draws in pros who treat Pokémon like a full-time career. And with Pokémon Home bridging every platform, your collection isn't locked away. It's alive, evolving across devices. Yet the mainline games are just one leg of the stool. Enter the Pokémon Trading Card Game, or TCG, which has quietly become a billion-dollar beast on its own. Launched back in 1996, alongside the first games, it started as a simple way to extend the universe onto your tabletop. Fast forward to today, and over 50 billion cards have been printed and sold globally. That's not a typo, 50 billion. You can picture the warehouses stacked to the ceiling with packs, each one a potential ticket to nostalgia or fortune. The TCG exploded during the pandemic, with online platforms like Pokémon TCG Live letting you battle from your couch, and physical tournaments filling convention halls. Remember the hype around the Sword and Shield era sets? Cards like the Charizard VMAX fetched thousands at auction, turning a childhood hobby into an investment. But it's more than money. It's strategy and storytelling in card form. Each expansion ties into the games. Think the Scarlet and Violet series mirroring those open-world vibes with new mechanics like Terra types. For collectors like you, it's endless variety, rare holos, alternate arts, and promo cards from events that make every pull feel like uncovering treasure. This pillar sustains the empire by reaching beyond screens into hands-on play that spans generations. Parents teaching kids the ropes, just like they did decades ago. Now layer on the anime, that unstoppable force of storytelling that's aired over 25 seasons and counting. Since Ash Ketchum first set off from Pallet Town in 1997, the show has captivated billions of hours of viewership. Over 200 episodes, plus movies like the timeless Mewtwo Strikes Back, have turned Pikachu into more than a mascot. He's a cultural icon. You know the electric mouse? He's on your phone cases, your lunchboxes, even city murals in Tokyo. The anime's genius lies in its adaptability. Early seasons mirrored the games beat for beat, but later ones branched out with deeper themes, like the Alola region's focus on family and growth in Sun and Moon. And with the recent shift to new protagonists in Horizons, it's refreshing the formula for a new era. Dubbed in over 30 languages, it builds emotional bonds that the games can't touch. Imagine tuning in every Saturday as a kid, heart racing during a gym battle. That's the stranglehold we're talking about. It's not just entertainment, it's education in perseverance, friendship, and strategy, subtly weaving Pokemon's world into real-life values. The films amplify this, grossing hundreds of millions at the box office, with spectacles like Detective Pikachu blending live-action CGI to pull in non-gamers. This audiovisual empire keeps the lore alive, ensuring that even if you never touch a Game Boy, you feel the Pokémon magic. But wait, there's the mobile revolution that sealed Pokémon's global grip, Pokémon Go. Launched in 2016, it didn't just download 1 billion times, it redefined how we interact with the world. Picture this, millions stepping out of their homes, phones in hand, chasing virtual creatures in real parks. At its peak, it was pulling in 232 million daily active users, turning neighbourhoods into hunting grounds. You were there, weren't you? Raiding gyms at midnight or trading catches with strangers at events like GoFest. Niantic's AR wizardry made every step an adventure, and the economic impact, over $5 billion in revenue, with in-app purchases for Pokeballs and incubators fueling the fire. It's more than a game, it's a social phenomenon that boosted fitness apps, local businesses, and even mental health initiatives. Community days brought players together, fostering friendships that last years. And with features like trading and battles synced to the main games via Pokémon Home, it ties the empire together seamlessly. Go's billion downloads aren't just stats. They represent a cultural shift, proving Pokémon can invade your daily life without you even noticing. These pillars don't stand alone. They're interconnected, forming a web that catches everyone. Spin-offs like Mystery Dungeon let you play as Pokémon in roguelike dungeons, while Ranger series emphasised capturing with styluses. Stadium and Masters X bring battling to the forefront on consoles and mobile. Then there's the merchandising machine. Plushies, apparel, cereals, Pokémons on everything. The official stores in places like Rockefeller Center sell out in hours, and collaborations with brands like Vans or Louis Vuitton turn fans into walking billboards. Events like Pokémon World Championships unite it all, with cosplay, card battles, and game showdowns under one roof. This cross-media synergy is why the franchise has generated over $100 billion in lifetime revenue. It's not hyperbole, it's the result of smart expansion from TCG's billion card sales to anime's endless episodes and Go's viral spread. You felt it, the way a new game release spikes card prices or an anime episode inspires fan art floods. It's a self-sustaining loop where each pillar feeds the others, creating a cultural stranglehold that's hard to escape. You might wonder, how does something this massive stay relevant? The answer lies in its adaptability. Take the controversies we've touched on, like the Dexit backlash in Sword and Shield. Fans demanded the full national Dex, and Game Freak listened, sort of, with DLC that expanded the roster. It showed the Empire's resilience. Criticism doesn't topple it, it evolves it. The shift to open worlds in Legends, Arceus and Scarlet and Violet addressed calls for freedom, letting you roam without linear paths. And the live service elements? Those DLC packs for Gen 9, like the Teal Mask and Indigo Disc, keep content dripping in, encouraging subscriptions and replayability. It's a model borrowed from bigger industries, but Pokémon makes it feel personal. Looking ahead, the future spin-offs and merch promise this immortality will endure. Pokémon Legends ZA in 2025 brings real-time battles to Lumiose City, reviving mega evolutions with a story of urban redevelopment. Imagine transforming Kalos into a vibrant hub, your choices shaping the skyline. Then there's Pokémon Pokopia in 2026, a Switch 2 exclusive where you play as a humanized Ditto, building farms and crafting in a shared world sandbox. Using moves to terraform biomes, co-op with friends, it's Life Sim meets Pokémon, introducing peculiar forms like a spiky Pikachu variant. And Pokémon Champions, the turn-based strategy hybrid on Switch and mobile, connects everything with legacy mechanics. Merch will explode too. Expect AR-enabled toys, VR experiences, and more crossovers. The TCG keeps innovating with digital-physical hybrids and Go-Eye's metaverse integrations. But here's the shadow looming large: fan demands for true innovation. You've voiced it in forums and petitions. Enough remakes, more bold risks. The performance issues in Scarlet and Violet sparked debates on polish versus pace. Will Game Freak push boundaries, like full voice acting or deeper narratives tackling real-world issues? Or will safe expansions keep the cash flowing at the expense of creativity? The Empire's strength is its fans, after all. Without your passion, it's just code and cards. As we wrap this history, consider how Pokémon has mirrored our world. From isolated Game Boys to connected global communities, it's grown with us. This endless empire isn't accidental. It's a testament to visionaries like Satoshi Tajiri, who turned bug-collecting dreams into a phenomenon. You've caught them all in spirit through this journey, but the real capture is the joy it brings. What does this mean for the future of gaming, of culture itself? Stick around as we reflect on the lessons learned and the legacy that outlives us all. If this story resonated with you, there's so much more to explore. Tap the Pokémon playlist to continue the adventure, and save it so you'll always have something soothing to fall asleep to, or choose the recommended video for another deep dive.